Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
And good afternoon. Yes, welcome to the home of common sense. Boy, we've got a lot to get through this afternoon. Particularly Rachel Reeves, who's not taking away and being prudent. She's adding to the big old welfare bill by lobbying 15 billion quid's worth of additional benefits, ending the two-child cap, uprating payments by nearly 4% and reversing that winter fuel and welfare cut, funded by freezing income tax thresholds that will push about 9 million people into higher rates, and of course toying with how to collar people in the property department. On that point, will wealth taxes save the economy? We'll have a look at that shortly. Also this afternoon, migrants being housed at an army camp in East Sussex are being offered arts and craft classes, sports events and well-being sessions as thousands of flag-waving locals protest the accommodation plan for a third straight week. I mean, there is a point when you might want to listen to tax-paying locals, right? I don't think it's too much to ask. This is beyond satire. We'll have more on that. And the Conservative Party chairman, Kevin Hollenrake, has likened Reform's new logo to that of the Nazi Party. In a statement on X, the official Reform UK account posted, the Tory party chairman just posted, and then deleted, a tweet comparing us to the Nazis. This is what the Tories really think of anyone voting Reform. Will Mrs Badenoch condemn her chairman? Well, it has been deleted, and a massive own goal for the Blues, frankly. Details to come. Everything you need to know, all the breaking news right here on Talk 0344 499 1000. Look, I mean, all of this stuff is pretty obvious, and I know you're kind of ahead of the game, and anyone listening to us right now and joining in with a discussion on the kind of things we like to debate on a daily basis are pretty much on this one as well. We are in a mess. I mean, to say we're financially in a mess is an understatement. Anyone can work that out. You could be a first-year student of economics and write a paper on that and probably give yourself a nice, decent mark if you could. It's obvious to anyone that cares that we're in an absolute royal mess. It's broken. The second bit of bad news is that it is projected to get so much worse over the next year or so. Can the economy even withstand it? Will it collapse, fall into recession? Where do we stand in those international league tables? They used to talk about the fastest growing economy in the G7, which was always a little bit of a skewed stat. But nonetheless, what is Rachel Reeves' answer to this? The big area, of course, that's causing the problem is that of welfare. The welfare budget is unsustainable. It simply cannot go on. It's not an opinion. It's just a matter of fact. It is an absolute mess. The Tories don't come out of this unwounded either. They were previously in charge. Nobody really did the maths. No one's brave enough to do what needs to be done. Now, Boomerang Rach did give it a go a year or so back, and her backbenchers decided it was the most outrageous thing to do. She was likened to a serial killer with a demonic intention of screwing up people who are the most in need. So they scrapped that. So her answer now is to go the other way and spend more money on welfare than she was going to. She was going to save money a year ago. Now she's going to spend more money, another 15 billion quid going into the pot. There's no talk about cutting spending, that spending bill that's out of control, the welfare issue that needs a proper philosophical look at it. And it all comes down to how you tax people. Obviously, the government don't have any money. They only have your money. That's a straightforward, bona fide fact, kids, and you can't retract from that reality. So where do you get the money from? You've got to tax people. In what kind of way? Well, the freezing of those thresholds means about 9 million people go into higher tax rates. Doesn't touch the sides. Nice work, Rachel. Doesn't touch the sides. It's also massively unfair. Is a wealth tax, then, the only answer? We do know that she is toying with the idea that's going to hit 100,000 Brits on the most expensive properties with a kind of surcharge, which could be worth an average of about 4,500 quid. She's trying to balance the books. And taxing the wealthy is one of the ways they want to do it. We've heard of mansion taxes. We've heard of taxing people who are worth over, was it over £10 million? We'll talk to the patriotic millionaires later in the programme. We've heard all of these initiatives over the years. But is there, and I don't even like asking the question, is there an irredeemable reality in all of this, that if you want to raise significant amounts of money, you've got to go for the people with more money? Now, to me, that's always been the buffoon's idea of what an economy or how an economy should run, because it might work for 1 year. I don't know if it works for the next few years. And if you adopt that as a philosophy, every time you're a bit skint, what do? Just go back to the successful people, all the people that made the money, by the way, and already pay the most tax. We'll just go to those people. Eventually, those people will also run out of money, or they'll find imaginative ways to avoid it, or they'll leg it for the hills and go and move somewhere else. It's usually one of the three. 0344 499 1000. Will a wealth tax save the economy? If it won't, tell me why. If you think it will, I'm all ears at this end. I have a belief here that if it was the kind of the magic bullet, then it would have been utilised by now, either by the Tories or certainly by Labour. But it hasn't. Under Blair, they didn't go there. Rachel Reeves is looking at this property thing, which might raise some money, 400 to 450 million. When you consider the level of debt and the crisis we have, that's not going to touch the sides. So what is the answer? Will a wealth tax save the economy? Let's get a word on all of this. David Wooding is with us, political journalist of some note, columnist at The Sun, and of course one of those that will absolutely be hammered by the 10 million wealth tax. Personally, Dave, I know it's a terrible thought for you, but you know, that home in Barbados is looking more likely by the day, isn't it?
More unlikely. It's still a distant dream on the horizon.
Indeed. So well, let's start with this then. This is, I mean, Rachel Reeves adding 15 billion quid to benefits in the budget. You'd think, well, you know, we've got a problem with the welfare budget. It's out of control. So how are we going to address this? We'll just spend more money on the welfare, but you can't kind of make it up. Let's have a listen to Keir Starmer. He was questioned yesterday, this was on Sky News, about the budget. Here's what he said.
The Chancellor said in last year's budget, freezing the thresholds will hurt working people. She's right, isn't she? I'm not asking you about the budget, I'm just asking you if it would hurt working people.
We are going to set out our decisions. We will have absolutely in mind that the cost of living is the number one issue for people across the country.
And then we will make during the election, fully set out. During the election, you promised not to raise taxes on working people. You put it in your manifesto.
We did.
Before the budget last year in Chogham, I asked you this. You recommitted to that. I just want to say on record now, you are not recommitting to that today, are you?
Well, it's only a matter of days now to the budget.
Okay.
We will set out our plans in that budget. I've set out what the principles are,
okay.
and I can tell you, I mean, politics for me is about who do you have in your mind's eye.
It's working people, and you're going to put their taxes up.
Fair play to Beth Rigby on that one. She pushed him on it. He's going to put taxes up. There's no doubt about it, Dave.
I don't think there is. I mean, it's going to be one hell of a U-turn to eclipse those we've already seen if we don't get them. But what's clear to me is that this is going to be a tax and spend budget to end all tax and spend budgets. Yeah. They're not just going to. It's not just tax and spend, it's tax and spend on welfare. We're getting £15 billion of welfare giveaway. They're going to put benefits up by 4%. We've already had the big U-turn on PIP payments and the £5 billion welfare reforms. And now they're going to scrap the two-child cap on benefits, which is very popular out there. I think 60-70% of the public think it's a good idea, on the basis that if you're working and you have 2 children, you want to go above 2 children, you have to budget for it. But if you're on benefits, you don't. You get rewarded for it.
And on that point, that came in under the Tories, of course, and there was many years' notice that it was coming in. I think 4 or 5 years, so that it was everyone could plan for it. You know, and if you're going to struggle financially, you've got this bit of information now that you know there won't be a third child. I mean, you still get your child benefit. It's not that stays, but the rest of it, the actual cap and what that applies to, the ability to up your universal credit, which could be 3,000 or 4,000 quid a year. people knew that was coming, and so there was nothing unfair about it.
No.
And yet it looks as if she's going to, well, I mean, this is about a Starmer leadership contest, isn't it?
Well, it is, and most of this seems to be, the only people this seems to be appealing to are those on the left of the Labour Party.
Yeah, completely.
Those people who are reasonably well off, Liberals, North London, professionals who are voting Labour or are members of the Labour Party, who have this deep social conscience about spending more money on welfare, looking after migrants however they enter the country, and the money's all being spent on that. And of course, you know, the pensioners are going to be hit as well as workers, because we've heard that there's going to be cuts to the thresholds, the tax thresholds. That's the big thing. If they freeze the tax thresholds for some extra years, an extra 9 million people will be dragged into either paying tax for the first time if they're low paid, or into paying higher tax if they're already paying the basic rate taxation. And of course many of those will be pensioners who'll be paying, it's estimated, an extra £850 a year in taxation. Now of course the triple lock will mean that pensions will go up by about £550, but still they're going to be worse off.
And then you've got this property thing. This, you know, if you're living in a fairly nice house, then it might well mean that you're going to be asked to pay an average of £4,500 a year. 100,000 people will be potentially hoovered up in that stat.
Now that, I
mean, that's pretty grim as well. That's steep.
These aren't people who own homes in Barbados. These are people who may have bought a house 25, 30 years ago for £200,000, £300,000, and now found it's worth £1.5 million, £2 million. And they're going to get taxed if they're in the FG or H band with this extra fee, as you say. It's going to raise about £45 million for the billion for the Treasury, and these people are asset rich but cash poor. All their money and all their life savings has gone into buying a house. Some of
these people, I mean, I know nobody's going to cry for somebody who lives in a tasty house somewhere, but you know, some of these people bought their houses for about 36 quid in 1957.
Exactly.
It just happens now that it's worth a ton of money. They might not have an extra £4,500 because this is monkeying around with the bands, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And they're going to find it difficult to sell it, because the housing market is going to be banjaxed, because and that will filter right down to the lower prices. The government's trying to build 1.5 million new houses, and to do this at that time when there's a housing shortage is just going to stifle the whole market.
But again, it kind of feeds to the left a bit, doesn't it? Because we're taxing people. Is that word? Or they're wealthy, tax them.
Tax them, yeah.
It's just got a bizarre philosophy that's never really worked
anywhere. Part of, you know, punitive taxes for the better off,
Let's move to this story, Dave. Migrants housed at an army camp are being offered arts and craft classes. Who doesn't want one of those? Sports events and well-being sessions. Thousands of flag-waving locals, of course, have come out in protest about this, the army camp in Crowborough. And of course the new Home Secretary was meant to be cracking down on migrant spending. Let's have a reminder of what Shabana Mahmood had previously said.
This is a moral mission for me. I can see that illegal migration is creating division across our country. I can see that it is polarising communities across the country. I can see that it is dividing people and making them estranged from one another. I don't want to stand back and watch that happen in my country. What is happening with our illegal migration system is this is a broken system. It's not right-wing talking points or fake news or misinformation that is suggesting that we've got a problem. I know, because I have now seen this system inside out. It is a broken system.
It is a broken system, she says. I mean, stand by for memes coming out saying I illegally entered the UK and all I got was this lousy pottery vase that I made on one of my courses, because that's on the list there. Arts and craft classes, sports events and well-being sessions. And of course we pay for all of this.
Yeah, and again we've just been talking a few moments ago about how we're all being taxed, and we're all being taxed and it's all being spent on things that the vast majority of people in Britain, if you look at the polls, are against. They don't want more welfare spending. They don't want more money spent on migrants who enter the country illegally. Look, we open our arms to asylum seekers who are genuinely fleeing persecution, but a lot of these people are just cheating the system, and they're being put up, not only being put up in a town, they're undocumented young men in a small town, but they're paying for them to have these coaches who are coming in. I think it was £60,000 a year they're paying for one of these coaches to come in and treat them arts, crafts, cultural issues. And the government's response to this is that we have to do something to keep them entertained while they're in there. But you know,
really?
Yeah, a lot of the people living in Crowborough would probably like to go and spend some time on
there's probably there's probably a lot of people that can't afford to go to the local pottery club or the latest sporting event or a bit of ping pong coaching on a Wednesday evening. I mean, that's not an argument, is it? If you've come allegedly destitute from another country, escaping a tyrannical regime, then I don't think, you know, on your to-do list is learn to play squash or whatever else it might be. I mean, that just seems bizarre.
The other thing
I'd imagine even the migrants on a good day would go, we're not asking for this.
Absolutely. And the people of Crowborough have been arguing about lack of policing in that area. Now, it's a little leafy East Sussex town, quite genteel, but the police have issued lots of women there with rape alarms.
Yeah.
Why?
Why would you do that?
Yeah, now...
I mean, that's quite bothering, isn't it?
It is bothering. What are they expecting out there? Because there's not been an upsurge in rapes in that area, but it just shows the alarm that this is all creating.
100%. Dave, stay with us. More stories on the way. Lots to get through here. And that question on will a wealth tax save the economy? When you consider the debt we're in, and boy, we're up to our flipping eyeballs in it, and it's projected to get worse. Is a wealth tax essentially, even if you hate it, is that the only answer? 0344 499 1000. This is Talk.
Some breaking news for you coming out of Liverpool Crown Court.
Loads to talk about, I promise you that. Loads and loads and loads.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the programme. Welcome to the Home of Common Sense.
Yes, it's me again, your genial host, Kevin O'Sullivan. Top of the morning to you. This is Talk Breakfast. I'm Mark Dolan.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
23 minutes after 1 o'clock, right here on Talk. Dave Wooding is with us, looking at the big stories of the day. Let's move to this one, Dave. This broken really today. Kevin Hollinrake, the Tory party chairman, likening Reform's new gold logo to the Nazi golden party badge. He put like a Wikipedia link to it. He's now since deleted this, and of course it's now being a bit of an own goal for the Tories.
Yeah, I mean, social media has been a bit of a graveyard for so many people, hasn't it, who post things that they then regret. I mean, in his case, he must have thought really hard or really exaggerated his thoughts to have linked the Reform logo to the Nazi logo. It was the one which was first used in 1933, I think, with the gold round it, which was to encourage the first 100,000, I think it was, members who would get a special award. I mean, his knowledge of history must be good to do that, but his visual skills of matching things up doesn't seem to be the same.
No, and it's also
a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, it's when you do it's called Godwin's law, isn't it? Once you invoke Hitler or the Nazi in an argument, you've lost the argument. You're
exactly.
There's always something when you're talking about, I don't know, being strict on immigration. Somebody will phone up and say, I think somebody else had this idea in 1938. As if it's like, oh great, you've gone Hitler bound, and it's a kind of an easy get out, but it's also a big insult to the Conservative Party were trying to hold on to people from drifting over to Reform, suggesting that if you do support Reform, then somehow by association, you're some kind of Nazi.
And this business of the far right, everybody who's got an idea which is not quite in line with the thinking of the Liberals is always far right.
Yep.
I mean, far right is not Reform. It's a right-wing party. It's sort of a bit more right than the Conservative Party.
That's all it is.
It's not an extremist
far
party.
Right. Yeah, when people throw that pejorative in, they're far right. It's like, really?
You never hear anyone calling the Greens or Jeremy Corbyn far left, which, they are pretty extreme left-wing.
Absolutely. And it used to, of course, be the Tories that were called for far. I remember years ago interviewing a professor of politics from some, very impressive university somewhere. I think it was a Brazilian guy, and he knew everything about everything. And I said to him, when the Tories were sort of always being accused by Labour of being, this ultra-right party, and I put that to him. He nearly fell off his chair laughing. He went, what, the Tory party?
Exactly.
Right-wing? Are you serious? You've seen how much money they spend on welfare and God knows what else. And similarly with Reform, like you say, they're a right-wing party, unapologetically, based on the kind of conventional spectrum. But they're not some extreme right-wing or hard right or anything like that. You can find them elsewhere.
Well, of course, a few people have done this in the past. I mean, John McDonnell, who was the Shadow Chancellor in the Jeremy Corbyn years, likened Nigel Farage to Hitler and called it a fascist party.
That's right.
Which is totally over the top.
It's just ridiculous.
How can you liken someone to Hitler?
Yeah.
I mean, the nearest we've seen to Hitler in recent times has been Putin, I guess.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's a big stretch to call someone Nazi. And the other one was Lord Hermer, if you remember, the Attorney General, who
he went there as well,
he made some comments which in a roundabout way, likened what was going on with reform with the Nazis before they came to power, and he had to apologise for that and said it was his clumsy use of words. So anybody who's done that has regretted it, as indeed Kevin Hollinrake has done by taking it down. But it's stupid, and there's so many. They're leading in the polls, so effectively you're accusing these people of being Nazis themselves, and therefore making it even less likely they're going to come back to your party.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Hollinrake probably thought he was being funny rather than making a genuine comparison. He thought it was a bit, look, it's a bit like that symbol they used to use back in the day. But the upshot is the same. It looks like a Tory is accusing Reform of being a bunch of Nazis.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he can't run away from that.
Silly.
I did want to mention this story because we're blokes and prostate cancer is always on the list. David Cameron has revealed that he was diagnosed with prostate cancer after his wife, Samantha, urged him to get checked. And it's interesting, I mean, whether you like or dislike David Cameron, but you do you need sort of high-profile people that raise these things. I remember when it was, when Stephen Fry had prostate cancer, and there was a sort of a huge uptake of people getting tested. But it's not screened routinely, is it? And that's the big problem with it.
And I think that's why he's come out in the open on this. I mean, he had every right to keep his health issues private, and we'd have all respected that. But he's come out to tell everybody about this because he believes people should be screened. In David Cameron's case, he'd seen some interview about it, and his wife said to him, "Why don't you go and get a check-out?" And of course, he talks quite movingly, really, about how he was sitting there, and then he was. The initial scan showed his PSA levels were up a touch. Then he went for the biopsy. Then he went in to see the doctor, who said, and he was thinking, oh, he's going to say it, isn't it? He's going to say it. And then he did say it. He said it. Yeah. But he's okay now. And I think we men are a little bit coy to think about our health or talk about it much. And prostate cancer, there's about 55,000 new cases in the UK every year, 12,000 deaths. It's the biggest killer of men and the fourth biggest all round in the population.
And sadly, remarkably curable.
It is.
If it's caught
92% success rate in that case. Of course, there's different indications if you've had it in the family. If you're black, I mean, 1 in 4 black men will get it, 1 in 8 generally. So it's
interesting.
That's important for black people. And the other one is if it's been in your family, or if you're at the age of about 50 to 70. So it's worth the check. But it isn't routine, as you say, and it's not routinely checked like. And blokes, when we go for mammograms and things.
And blokes sort of joke about it a bit because it's your bum and all that business. Yes. And, there is another sort of slightly more intricate test that can take place, and blokes joke about that, and it's like, oh, I don't know if I want any, that sounds horrendous to go through that. And, did the doctor send you a text afterwards to say what you're doing on Friday? You get all of these kind of sort of gags about it. But it's serious. 12,000 annual deaths, as you rightly said, Dave. But, of course, curable if you catch it early. Yes. And it's apparently costs 18 quid to test it.
Well, there's no reason why they couldn't, really, in terms of what's going on in the health service. These are the sort of things, we're talking again about the budget. The amount of money to spend on this, that would be a positive thing to do. That would be a winner in the budget. If she's got that one as a rabbit out the hat.
Could that be the rabbit out the hat? I mean, there haven't been many rabbits over the last few years, have there? There used to always be a little beauty that popped out. But you can pay for ping pong lessons in the asylum centre. Yeah. But you can't pay for routine prostate testing, which is, frankly,
I mean, this would be
obscene,
money well spent,
100%.
particularly as we're paying more taxes.
Yeah. On that point, Dave, good to see you. As ever, Dave Wooding with us on the programme. Thank you to him. Over to you on that question in particular. We'll talk about the prostate thing as well, because I think that's rather interesting that it is curable. And very clearly there are people who unfortunately don't make it through, but caught early. And you might have your own stories relating to that. But the big question we're asking this afternoon referenced this up-and-coming budget on Wednesday. Would a wealth tax save the economy? Even if you hate the idea of a wealth tax, would it actually work? Is it almost the only option left? 0344 499 1000.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Just tax the rich. That seems to be a bit of a mantra out there. We will speak to Stephen Kinsella in a moment, who's a member of Patriotic Millionaires, who are certainly suggesting a wealth tax that would, on their figures, raise quite a lot of money. Would it work? Is it fair? There's various ways over the years people have suggested this, the mansion tax thing. In fact, we'll talk to Lucian Cook from Savills in just a bit as well. Let's get a word from Len Shackleton, Professor of Economics at Buckingham University. Len, good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon, Ian.
I mean, it runs around, this one, doesn't it? It never fully goes away. Just a wealth tax. You know, there's a load of wealthy people over there. They're all squillionaires. Just tax them all. What could go wrong?
Yes, well, one of the problems, Ian, is actually pinning down what wealth is. There are so many different ways to hold it. You know, you can hold it in artworks, you can hold it in housing, you can hold stocks and shares, bonds, you name it. And unfortunately, this is very difficult to sort of pin down statistically. What you end up doing is focusing on a subset of wealth, like housing, the mansion tax idea and so forth. And then, of course, that alters people's behaviour. They stop investing in big houses, they rent their housing instead, and they put their money into something else. You know, it's like trying to nail down jelly, basically, is measuring and taxing wealth. It's
what about just I mean, the other idea, of course, is just upping the top rate of income tax. I mean, does that... I mean, when people give it to you on paper, they say, look, if it went to back to 50p as it was once upon a time. I mean, we all remember Gordon Brown had it at 50p for about half an hour, didn't he, before an election was looming, because he thought that might win him a few votes. Didn't quite work. But if you put it to 50p or if you put it to 52p, is that not the answer?
Well, that's a slightly better answer in a sense, in that you are actually taxing something which exists, the income. The trouble with things like mansion tax is often that the people may own, you know, people may be living in a house which they bought many years ago and now is worth $1.5 million, 2 million or something, but they've got very little income on which to pay the tax. So they end up having to sell their house and all that kind of stuff. I mean, income tax is of course, probably the best way of doing these things. But we already, you know, the top 1% of taxpayers already pay 30% of all tax revenue received from income tax. So how much more you can squeeze them on that, I don't know. And
the problem, I suppose, Len, is that once sort of philosophically you're wedded to that idea of going to the rich, I mean, there's always going to be the temptation, well, the following year when the books still aren't balanced, you just go back to that same idea and up it again. And then you keep doing that to the point you end up with a kind of sort of 1970s moment where people are paying 98p in the pound or something.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, you know, I still remember some of those horrendous rates of taxation, which of course acts as a major disincentive to improving yourself, basically. I mean, the reality of things, Ian, is that if we really want to pay, if we really want to spend on more on welfare benefits, on more on the NHS, on more on defence and so forth, the great bulk of the population have to cough up for this. Yeah. The idea that you can rely on a handful of billionaires, squillionaires or whatever to pay it for you is just a complete fallacy, I think.
And I suppose the issue around this and the criticism of Rachel Reeves is that she is now about to increase the welfare budget. It was only last year or earlier this year that she was looking at trying to, well, in fact, wasn't so much cutting it, but just cutting the rate that it was going up by, or the amount it was going up by. And then, of course, all the backbenchers, all the Labour backbenchers, you know, discombobulated, and she did the old reverse ferret, and it never happened. And now she's adding 15 billion quid to it. So that bill, which is already by any reckoning, left-wing, right-wing, is completely unsustainable, and it's going to get more expensive. And on Wednesday, there's going to be several more billion added to it.
Yeah, I mean, the welfare bill is totally out of control, and we see that, you know, many of the results of this are dysfunctional. We're seeing a huge growth in the number of people of working age who are not working, because you know, getting welfare benefits is actually a better deal than trying to get a minimum wage job. This has to change, but it's very difficult. I feel sorry for Rachel Reeves. I know she gets a lot of stick for these things, but she's a complete prisoner of the Labour Party, which many of whose members haven't got a clue about the economy or what should be done about it.
Yeah, it does feel more like Keir Starmer protecting his position with the left than it does about some sort of genius fiscal plan.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And, Keir Starmer, is he long for the political world? I don't know. Maybe we'll see something even worse in a few months' time if he goes and somebody from the left comes in.
Yeah. Maybe Corbyn will come back, although he's in another party now. But I don't want to. I hate to leave it on that sour note, Len. But thank you for joining us. Really appreciate your time, Professor Len Shackleton, Professor of Economics, Buckingham University. Let's look at the House side of this then. This is the idea of altering those pesky bands of your council tax. Lucian Cook is Director of Residential Research at Savills. Lucian, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
Nice to have you with us. I mean, this is always, again, it's another one of those kind of stories that goes around, comes and people talk about it. They wonder, is it going to happen? Will I be in this band, that band? And you know what it's like from your business. That's always tricky, and it is a decider on the kind of property somebody goes for, much like stamp duty is, of course. These are all factors in how we think about bricks and mortar. But this could be, I mean, if we are to believe what we're hearing, I mean, this could be pretty brutal for some houses. It could be looking at £4,500–5,000 a year extra on top of what they pay.
Yeah, well, look, I think a lot of this comes down to what are some of the perceived inequities in the current council tax system, which, as we know, is hugely out of date, being based on 1991 values. But we shouldn't remember, or shouldn't forget rather, that that is essentially a local government tax that happens to be linked to residential property values. I suppose we've been with this period of uncertainty really now for about 4 months. It was back in August that we started to see some of these measures trailed in the media. That has resulted in a degree of uncertainty in the housing market and people putting off decisions. I think what we've got now actually is much less draconian from what we're seeing than some of the other proposals that have been mooted over the period of those last 4 months.
I mean, some people just sort of argue if you live in a house that's worth over £800,000, then you should be stung with X, Y, and Z. Well, I mean, £800,000 20 years ago bought you a pretty tasty place. Today, certainly in cities up and down the country, not just in London, it really doesn't do very much.
Yeah, and I think that was the problem that we had when the government started by saying we want to attack 300,000 homes across the UK. If they were to do that, then they probably would have had to start the additional costs at around 1.45 million. That is a significant tax burden then on London and the South East. It starts to affect middle-class families, and that, I think, is why we have seen the government row back from that. The current proposal, as we understand it, are some charges on the properties which they think are worth £2 million or more. They believe that's the top 100,000 properties. I suspect that is a bit of an underestimate in terms of the number of properties affected by that. And it looks like they're looking to raise around 450 million from that. Now, that is not an inconsequential sum of money, but it is a whole lot less than they were talking about, or Labour were talking about 10 years ago when they were talking about a mansion tax to raise 1.2 billion.
Yeah, the mansion tax thing. And then, of course, you've got people who are asset rich but, don't necessarily have a lot of disposable money. Many of those people would be stung. I always tell the story of, seeing some old boy mowing his, retired fella living in a £2 million house, mowing his grass, looking, very relaxed in retirement, knowing that he bought his house in about 1951 for £37. It just happens through no fault of his own to be worth a fortune now. But it doesn't mean he might still be on a state pension.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the big problems that you have with anything that is just based on property values, it is only one measure of wealth.
Yeah.
Not only does it have a disproportionate impact on the cash poor but asset rich, and again, some of that is a result of house price growth over a prolonged period, but neither does it have regard to your personal financial circumstances. You might be living in a high value property, but you may have taken out a significant mortgage.
True.
To buy that property. And then, of course, that sort of really highlights that difference between gross and net wealth. And I think that historically has been one of the things that have dogged all of these proposals. Indeed. Listen, Lucian, nice to have you on with us. Thank you for your time, sir. Really appreciate that. Lucian Cook, Director of Residential Research from Savills. Thank you to him. I'll tell you what's interesting. We are going to speak to Stephen Kinsella shortly, who's one of the members of Patriotic Millionaires. Now, they believe, it's something on the lines, he will explain it in more detail, they believe that if you've got assets over 10 million, there should be, I can't remember what the percentage is that they're suggesting you should be taxed on. So they're assuming you've got disposable income, and that would raise a shed load of money. John Ross says the first thing you will need for a mansion tax is a valuation on all household property to see who pays. This means a huge bureaucratic process which arms the government with a view of the value of your home. Then a 2 million threshold becomes a parameter to play with, and we are all potentially at risk. I'll tell you what's interesting. There's a lot of people politically on the left that will say, yeah, I'm in favour of a wealth tax of some sort. I'd love to speak with you if you are on the right. And I don't mean, the extreme right. I'm talking about, if you're a Tory, for example. But you agree with a wealth tax. Give us your thoughts on that as well. 0344 499 1000. Let's speak with Stephen Kinsella, member of Patriotic Millionaires. Stephen, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Ian. Good to see you again.
And you too. Nice to have you back on. Look, I don't know what the political breakdown is of members of Patriotic Millionaires, but I'm assuming that you're not all loony, screaming lefties. So there must be some people who bat maybe centre-right, possibly, long-term Tory voters. I'm sure you're going to tell me it's a mixture of all of the above. But the one thing you all have in common is that you do believe that there is a mechanism that could be employed. Some would call it a wealth tax. You would say it's a reasonable way of getting some money back into the coffers from the people who can most afford it.
Yeah, that's right, Ian. And obviously we've talked about this before, and I think I heard, just as I was coming in, heard you say there's a question about what the rate would be. So our proposal was for a 2% wealth tax for net wealth above 10 million. And as you said, we've had projections done on this that that would raise about £24 billion a year. And that is allowing, to anticipate one of the questions we get asked, that is allowing for a certain amount of behavioural change. Possibly some people would adjust their assets, or would even a few might leave the country.
So if I had assets of 11 million, I'd be taxed 2% on the 1 million.
On the 1 million, exactly. So that would be £20,000. Okay. So you would have to find £20,000 a year to pay that tax bill.
Has there been research done, Stephen, from you guys to look at what disposable income looks like from people who've got assets of 10 million? I mean, obviously, a smart guess would say, look, I know people can say, well, you might be asset rich and cash poor, but the chances are if you've got 10 million quid, you're worth a few quid and you've got disposable income. Or is it that, or is there some definitive idea of how much people do have to spend?
As you say, there has been some research done. I mean, obviously, wealth is one of those, just as the amount of tax that any of us pay is something that's confidential. It's not something that's that obvious to all of us. But you're right that there is, I think, a not unreasonable working assumption that if you do have wealth of 10 million, you're probably also incurring, school fees and lots of other running costs for your family. And therefore, you should have a small proportion of your wealth will be, as all of us would do prudently, would be in liquid form and would be relatively easily accessible to pay a tax bill.
It's often said, and I think we talked about this before, that there is if you go to the HMRC website, there is an element there that you can click on and voluntarily pay more money. What's wrong with that?
Yeah, and I think that gets to the heart of this, really, and that's why it's such a good question, because one of the things I think that, and you were talking earlier about what's the political makeup of the Patriotic Millionaires and other groups. But I think one of the things that most people across the political spectrum would have in common in this country is they would say they're quite happy to sign up to lots of systems as long as it's fair. So you're right. You could say to me or anyone else who's advocating for more tax, well, why don't you just pay more tax if that makes you feel better about it? But that's not going to work. It's not going to, first of all, deliver the revenues that we're going to need to pay for all the things that we think this country needs in terms of investment. But also, most of us, as I say, are quite happy to sign up to something as long as it's applied across the board and is applied fairly. So That's why there's, even among those who would pay this tax, there's huge support for it. Our polling shows more than 80% support among those who would pay this wealth tax. But that, again, is on the basis that it would apply even-handedly.
You talked about how much it would raise. Did you say 24 billion or something like that?
24 billion, yes. That's independent research that was commissioned by, yes.
So do we have any numbers, Stephen, to tell us how many people are in possession of assets over 10 million quid?
Yes, we think it's about £20,000. So I think your listeners might be surprised if
20,000 people.
20,000 people, yeah. If people talk about how many millionaires, there are about 3 million millionaires in this country. But that, of course, a lot of that's tied up in wealth. That doesn't mean they've got £1 million of free cash. But those who have assets of more than 10 million, we think it's about 20,000.
Right. And you've got enough members that support this? Does it reflect all of that 20,000, do you think?
Our members are a very small portion of those, obviously. I mean, it's a membership that's growing, but and that's why we do rely on the polling. So we know, obviously, what our members would support, but we have had this independent polling conducted as well that did say that over 80% of those who would pay the tax would happily pay it if it were a tax that was levied across the board. OK, on that point, Stephen, great to speak again, sir. Thank you for your time. Stephen Kinsella, he's a member of Patriotic Millionaires, and they are advocating a 2% wealth tax if you have assets over £10 million. So if you've got 11 million quid's worth of assets, you'd be paying 2% on just 1 million, which would be about 20,000 a year, and it obviously goes up from there. Is that an answer? Is that the answer? He says it is. He's done the calculations. £24 billion it would raise, and that completely covers the black hole and then some. Good idea, bad idea? Tell us why that wouldn't work. 0344 499 1000.
In terms of your question around taxes, there are no additional tax rises needed beyond the ones that I've set out.
Don't need to increase taxes. I'm not coming back with more borrowing or more taxes.
I will not increase your national insurance. I will not increase your VAT, and I will not increase your income tax. We don't need to come back for more. We've done that now. We've wiped the slate clean. The economic circumstances have declined, deteriorated since a year ago. We are having to look at taxes and spending.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This one from Graham in Birmingham. I think everybody who voted Labour should have their council tax doubled. After all, they knew what they were voting for. I mean, it's one of the rare things that Rishi Sunak said that was true. So if you vote for this lot, remember the TV debate they had? He said your taxes will go up. I mean, they probably would have gone up under Rishi, but, you know, he wasn't wrong in what he said. Dave's down in London. What have you got for us, Dave? Good afternoon.
Hi, Ian. How are you? Good show, mate.
Yeah, good, thank you. What are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I like the fact that Mr. Kinsella actually specified the specific tax, because often when I hear people come on going, yeah, wealth tax, wealth tax, wealth tax.
There's no detail.
Yeah. So I'm not telling you how to do your job. I wouldn't interview anyone unless they start with, what specific wealth tax are you talking about?
Because what you tend to hear, especially if you look at social media, and that's not the best place to go for truth and sanity, but if you go there, you will see people say, just tax the rich, and that's all they say. There's no detail on it. There's no, they haven't thought out how it would happen.
Yeah, and people say it's popular. Well, here's another popular tax. Tax everybody that's got a cat. Because I haven't got a cat, so
cat tax.
Even with a cat tax, yeah. Now,
that's brilliant, because nobody should own one of those flea-ridden beasts, should they?
No, as long as they don't bring in a dog tax, then I would. But anyway, so...
you can't have a dog tax. That's a horrendous idea. Beautiful bits of kit, your dog.
I wish you'd asked Mr. Kinsella, how much is he in for? Because here's the thing for you.
I nearly did, and I thought, is that... Yeah, but I did think that's like saying, tell us what you earn, isn't it?
Well, no. Well, why not? I'll give you a good example.
Go on.
Mr. John Cordwell, who was the founder of
Phones for You.
Phones for You, right? Yeah. He is worth 1.5 billion.
Yeah, he's doing all right.
Yep. He donated to Labour to get them elected.
Yeah.
He states he's giving away 70% of his wealth to charity.
Yep.
So magnanimous. However, guess what? He is against this wealth tax of 2% above 10 million.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Well, isn't it? Because he would have to pay about 35 million a year in tax. Now, to Mr. Cordwell, if he's listening, if he's trying to give his wealth away, he's in his 70s. He'll be dead in 10 years. So in order for him to give away 70% of his wealth, he better get on with it. He's got to get rid of about 70 million a year to do it. So why doesn't he let the government that he voted in...
Yeah, and donated to do it?
Why doesn't he say, do you know what, getting rid of 70 million a year is quite a tough ask. I'll pay 2%, 10 million, and let Angela Reeves spend it on things, because I'm sure... Sorry, Angela Rayner, bad news. I'm sure she'll spend it on the right things, but no, he doesn't want it. I know of another major Labour donor who is also a billionaire. Not going to name them, but they're on LinkedIn a lot saying, I'm really against the wealth tax. And you kind of think, you voted for them, mate.
Wow.
You are on Mr. Starmer's business committee, mate. You're constantly in there saying, look at me at number 10. But now they want a wealth tax, not for you, mate. So I personally would be quite happy with 2% above 10 million. Why? Because it won't impact me.
I get it. Dave, I love it. Thank you very much indeed for that. Dave down in London, who, I mean, it comes to something where you doom scroll on LinkedIn, doesn't it? And that's a new one on me, but there it is. He found another Labour donor that is also against it. And there are lots. I think Caldwell's reasoning would be quite simple, and I don't disagree with him, would be, I want to spend the money how I want to spend it. I don't want the government telling me how to spend it. But when you've been a Labour donor and it's a Labour government and they're up the what's it without a paddle, then, you know, would you not endorse the idea of a wealth tax of some description. We're going to go back to the calls in a few moments' time. Steph says, so I have 10 million, all of a sudden I'm heading towards 11 million. What am I going to do? Get my accountant to advise me on how to lose the extra million, maybe a yacht or something. It isn't going to work. Yeah, and that's, I think, what everybody would do, isn't it? I mean, our last guest, he said they've done the maths on this, and they've even accounted for people who might do that and reckon they'd still raise £24 billion, thus closing the big black fiscal hole that we keep hearing about. Thoughts on that? Is a wealth tax the way to save the economy? Even if you're a right-winger, would you support it? 0344 499 1000. Right now, 2 o'clock. Let's get the latest news headlines.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. It is the home of common sense. So much together. We are talking about Rachel Reeves, who is not going to find an imaginative way to cut spending. In fact, she's going to increase spending. 15 billion quid's worth to go on benefits in the budget, ending the two-child cap, uprating payments by nearly 4%, reversing that winter fuel allowance malarkey, and welfare cuts funded by freezing income tax thresholds that will push about 9 million into higher rates of tax. Is there a one-size-fits-all answer to all of these financial problems? Just tax the rich a little more. I mean, that's what the left tell us. Just tax the rich. They got loads of money, haven't they? Yeah, you tax them, you'd be treasuring bills. Yeah, doesn't quite work out like that, but we are going to ask the question, will a wealth tax save the economy? Even if you're a right-winger, would you support it? Also this afternoon, migrants being housed in an army camp in East Sussex are being offered art and craft classes, sports events and well-being sessions. This is how many people while many people on the streets of Crowborough are protesting that the accommodation plans are unacceptable. This is a third straight week these protests have been going. And the Tory party chairman, Kevin Hollinrake, has likened Reform's new logo to that of the Nazi Party. In a statement on X, the official Reform UK account posted, so the Tory chairman just posted and then deleted a tweet comparing us to Nazis. This is what the Tories really think of anyone voting Reform. So it's become a massive own goal for the Conservatives. I think Hollinrake probably thought it was just a bit of fun to make a comparison. He's opened up a can of worms and one the Tories couldn't really afford. Details to come. 0344 499 1000. That is where you will find us. This one on wealth tax as well, and we have many of them. John says the first thing they will need for a mansion tax is a valuation on all property to see who pays. Oh, I think I've read that one, didn't I, in the last section? Apologies. Let's look at this one in from Stuart. He says, I'm skint, so the more they can screw out the successful, hard-working people and give to losers like me, the better, says Stuart the Marxist. Good on you, Stu. I'm happy to pay. I'll send you some beans if that helps. Our lines are open, of course, 0344 499 1000. So let's move then to this story of what has been happening in Crowborough. This is migrants housed in an army camp there, as I mentioned, being offered all sorts of things like arts and craft lessons, sports events, well-being sessions. There's been 3 weeks now of protests from locals who are genuinely concerned about this. The 600 asylum seekers that will be housed at the army camp. And this is, of course, you know, expensive, and it's the taxpayer that cops the bill. That is some of their disquiet, and they have other reasons too. We'll talk to Ivan Sampson, the immigration lawyer, in just a second. First, Lucy White, public policy specialist, joins us. Afternoon to you, Lucy.
Hi Ian, good afternoon. How are you?
Good. Nice to have you with us again. I mean, this seems to be a bit of a kind of revolving door of a story, doesn't it? If it's not in Essex, it's in Crowborough, and there's many other examples like this. People are naturally and understandably concerned that 600 undocumented people are going to move in next door.
Absolutely. Well, what frustrates me is under the Immigration and Asylum Act of 1999, there's actually no obligation for specific accommodation. So, you know, we shouldn't be housing these people anyway or anywhere near local residents. They should be detained and deported immediately. And the fact that you can take Crowborough and locate up to 600, you know, illegal men, illegal asylum seekers is pure insanity. We've seen enough cases of rape and sexual assault to know the risks and the dangers. And so for the government to consider even placing them there is ridiculous. And I know that Sarah White from the Pink Ladies is actually encouraging the locals to stop paying their council tax, which is quite interesting. You know, it's just a sort of a point. You know, they protest, but nothing is happening. So they're sort of asking, what else can we do?
The government answer seems to be, and this comes to not only the issue that these people, and your point that has been made many times, is that, you know, that surely we are talking about people that we have no obligation to, and we don't know who they are, and we know they're mostly young men, and there are genuine concerns about that. Even allowing for the fact that, you know, if all 600 were decent, law-abiding people, that still doesn't answer the question as to whether a country has a moral obligation to house these people. But then on top of that, of course, you have other things going on, like some art classes and doing some pottery. There's also sports events, so a touch of ping-pong at 6:15, maybe some squash at 9:30, I don't know. But there's certainly, in addition to the huge amount of money that is being spent in this area, there's another tier of expenditure.
Yeah, exactly. What's interesting is we actually spoke to the Home Office about this 2 years ago to understand why illegal migrants were being given activities. And the Home Office's response is actually that they want to distract and keep the migrants busy. So I think in their mind, if the migrants are happy, you know, they're less likely to wander the streets and go and harass people. But of course, as we know, that doesn't work. The issue is the migrants have the freedom to walk around the town. I don't think they should be given any freedom at all. They should, of course, as I say, they shouldn't be here in the first place. And they should be detained and deported. And the fact that we are paying for this out of our taxpayers' money. We know the cost is around £6.4 billion a year. That could be used on our British people.
Yeah, and we've got a budget coming up on Wednesday, of course. Some stuff's going to go up and taxes are going to go up. And one of the things it pays for is exactly this malarkey that we're talking about.
Precisely. And as we also know, I mean, as we've seen in the news, we've seen that, you know, even the migrants here have been cheating to get citizenship. So you have all these other layers, Ian. So first of all, they arrive here, then they try to cheat their way into, you know, getting citizenship. And we know that on average, every single day, 739 people gain British citizenship, which is pure insanity, because once they have a passport, you know, they are essentially on paper legally British. But what we need to remember is that under Section 40 of the British Nationality Act of 1981, we can remove citizenship if the person is deemed to be sort of not good for the public. Yeah. So I think a lot of steps need to happen. We do need to start removing citizenships, and the top 3 nationalities that are gaining British citizenship are from India, Pakistan, and Nigeria. And what's concerning about Pakistan is, as we've seen in the papers today, Ian, is that we've seen around 10,000 Pakistanis are arriving in our country through a loophole and then claiming asylum. So it's just all bonkers. And the fact that, you know, last year, 22,600 Pakistanis gained British citizenship is of huge concern.
I mean, these numbers are absolutely vast, aren't they? And they continue, sadly, to grow. Lucy, thank you for your comments on that. We'll put that over to you listening to this too. 0344 499 1000. Lines are open on that. 87222 is where you'll find us on text. Messages, anything you like, whether it's prostate, whether it's this. Who'd have thought we'd be linking asylum with a wealth tax and prostate cancer, courtesy of some very bold words, and I will say that kindly, from David Cameron, who chose to speak out and say, look, you can get tested, please, because it will potentially save your life. This is Matt in Cheshire. What have you got for us, Matt, on wealth tax? What are you thinking? Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon, Ian. We've gone from the politics of envy to now the politics of spite. Mm-hmm. And Labour's obsession with wealth taxes ties in with their obsession with immigration. If you flood the country with people who have limited ability to earn money and no skills, and move them to probably the most expensive city on earth, where most of them end up, they will inevitably end up skint and broke and in need of public housing, and probably jealous of all the people that live in London who've got jobs and houses. Yeah. So you've then got a captive audience then for people who say, look at all those rich, horrible people who've got loads of money, and we're the poor. So the irony is, in the north, it's the poor and the working class that hate Labour the most. The poor and the...
Yeah, that's interesting. But you're in Cheshire, of course, which has got a big percentage of wealthy people.
I'm not in that rich footballer belt, Cheshire.
Come on, Matt.
I'm not in that part of Cheshire, Ian.
I heard you used to play for Spurs. Is that not true?
I would never play for Spurs, Ian.
Well, you could have done yesterday and got away with it.
Maybe it was. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that was atrocious. Basically, in London, the only people that support Labour are the very people that are going to end up paying the wealth tax.
It's kind of interesting, that, isn't it? I mean, so the older I get, the more fascinated I am by that cohort of people. I know there's the sort of kind of the lefty lovies, that kind of thing, who can't countenance the idea that you could vote for anybody but Labour, because they have a sort of an innate sense that by voting Labour, it somehow confirms their kindness, and they're nicer people as a result almost solely of their left-wingism. And it's such a bonkers anti-intellectual position, but it's one that's been there forever, and it continues to be so. I've never quite particularly with actors, you'd think an actor, bearing in mind the life the average actor has, which is, running around, being unemployed quite a lot of the time, having to find your own luck, having to work really hard to get a job, experiencing disappointment, you'd think that would make them a Tory, right? In the sense of, self-reliance and entrepreneurialism?
I think it's sort of like if you have to be seen to be supporting Labour and the establishment to be able to get work in that kind of field. And it's probably true with university lecturers and or anybody who's in the arts. If you're right-wing and you come out and said it, I think there are very few celebrities. I once had a massive discussion online years ago about people who were right-wing, who were celebrities. And I think we found to Eric Clapton.
Eric Clapton, yeah, that's true. I remember. Listen, Matt, your phone line has just died on us, sadly. I don't know what's happened. You've gone all Dalek on us, but broad point taken. Thank you for that. That is kind of weird, isn't it? That I've never understood left-wing politics. I can't see, bearing in mind, if you take what used to be called right-wing politics, as in the Conservative Party, I mean, the Conservative Party have never suggested that you aren't nice to people. They never suggested closing the welfare system. They never suggested, privatising the NHS. All that stuff they were accused of doing is now, all those daft accusations have moved on to reform. And yet, it would be seen as, taking a drink with the devil if you're an actor and you said, I'm also a Tory. And what do you want to be one of those for? Well, there is a sort of philosophical kind of framework to conservatism, whereas I don't sense there really is with the. I've never thought there was with the left. It seems like it's almost a kind of laughable ideology. Those that are further left, the sort of Jeremy Corbyn, Zach Polanski left, I get that a bit more. I kind of understand that. There is actually a framework to that thinking. It's a bit more honest in a weird way. It might be bonkers, but it's a bit more honest. Ben's in Essex. Ben, what have you got for us? Afternoon.
How you doing? Afternoon. Yeah, this government are either hugely incompetent or they just hate business or anyone having, trying to have a go. When is someone going to have the balls to step up and say, look, the way to create more money is incentivise business? Yeah. Get people out there working, free enterprise, capitalism. But this government just wants to abolish it, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's underneath, isn't it, everything they tend to do. They quite like the idea of coming for the wealthier, which could just be a byword for hard-working and successful.
Yeah.
It's in there. It's just in their DNA to sort of go there. Because let's remember, there's a lot of those old Corbynites still sitting on those front benches.
I don't know. I just think that you need to get money created in this economy to make more money, and all they want to do is try and take it from somewhere, and it's destroying the economy. I just think they're either hugely incompetent. I don't think they are. I just think they know what they're doing, and they're doing this on purpose to kill business and free enterprise.
Well, they're certainly doing it to try and shore up Keir Starmer's support from the left, because there is likely to be some kind of leadership challenge to him. And it will come from many different angles, and it could potentially be brutal, and Starmer will walk the plank. So he's doing a lot of this to shore up those old leftists. I'm still with you guys.
Yeah, this wealth tax, I think, will, because no business is going to want to stand for this. Businesses need to make money and want to be incentivised, and I just think they're going to have a lot to answer for. It'll be interesting what will happen on this budget, but someone in this country has got to step up and have the balls to say, look, we want you to make money, lower taxes. I know it sounds a little bit odd, but no one on the left is, how can you lower taxes? But let's get business.
And they don't believe in cutting spending either. No. So they're in this sort of moronic position where they think, with more taxes, more spend. It's like, give your head a wobble, guys, because you can't run an economy like there's no template in the world that will show you that works.
Exactly that, and none of it makes any sense to me, which makes you think, are they that stupid and incompetent, or are they really doing this on purpose? And I honestly think it's the latter. I think they hate business, they hate free enterprise, they hate capitalism.
Well, I'll tell you what, Ben, there's no one on that front bench that's ever run anything.
Exactly. I mean, I was going to say that.
That scares me a little bit, really. I don't want a front bench of all, millionaire businessmen, but I would like there to be a bit of experience in there where somebody around the cabinet table, when they're having these kind of sort of Che Guevara meetings and these love-ins, could actually stand up and go, no, it doesn't work like that, because you'll end up being skint and your company will close down. But they don't have that voice anywhere near them. Ben, I've got to move for time. Thank you for that. That's Ben down in Essex, 0344 499 1000. That's where you'll find us. This is Talk.
In terms of your question around taxes, there are no additional tax rises needed beyond the ones that I've set out.
Don't need to increase taxes. I'm not coming back with more borrowing or more taxes.
I will not increase your national insurance. I will not increase your VAT, and I will not increase your income tax.
We don't need to come back for more. We've done that now. We've wiped the slate clean.
The economic circumstances have declined, deteriorated since a year ago. We are having to look at taxes and spending.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, 22 minutes after 2. Back to your calls. Nick's down in London. What have you got for us, Nick? Afternoon.
Hello, and I hope you're well.
All good.
Crowborough and migrants, that does sound bad that they've got these courses and these facilities and sports and so on. But when you're keeping particularly young males within effectively a closed, confined space, the one thing you want to do is keep them calm and peaceful, and do that far better by giving them things to do rather than leave them to their own devices. The Ministry of Justice found that across the estate, the prison estate, for years past, and that's why there are courses and sports in prison.
That's true, but there is a balance, isn't there? There is a balance of the fact if they're advertising for jobs that are paying 30, 40, 50, 60,000 a year, then I think taxpayers are right to at least question that.
Well, I think taxpayers are right moaning about them being there at all in the first.
That's fine as well, surely, isn't it? It's democracy.
Yeah, that is the issue. We're going to get clobbered on Wednesday, apparently, by Rachel Thieves. So at the same time as we're spending 60,000 a year for a pottery instructor in Crowborough, why on earth should my taxes go up for that? That bit really annoys me.
So it should.
Crowborough's a nice town.
Yeah, I know it.
Crowborough's
I was going to say half quite well. That doesn't sound right. I know it quite well. And it's a lovely place. And I think we have to rid ourselves of the idea that if locals are objecting to 600 undocumented young men moving into a town, that there is something wrong with the locals. That seems to be the kind of line, you must be a mad racist, you must be X, Y and Z, you're stereotyping them all. No, it's nothing to do with that. I don't think 600 men are going to be 600, sex offenders, but if there's one, that would be one too many, and I don't want to play roulette.
Yeah. Agreed, Holly. And the thing is, they are gambling with other people's lives. The government, are gambling with other people's lives and other people's well-being and other people's safety. They're gambling with their own. They want to keep 600 migrants coming over. Okay, 600 migrants, 600 MPs, you have one each. Yeah. If that's what you want to do.
If that's what you want to do. Nick, thank you very much indeed for that. And by the way, you can have... I saw somebody getting really animated about the word deportation in an interview. They thought it was, the language of some, horror story regime that you might want to deport people who are not meant to be in your country. And there's enough people out there that really believe that, or they believe a kind of version of it, that if you house migrants and accept migrants, then therefore you're a kinder person. Notwithstanding our need to step in when terrible things have happened to people, I think we all get that. What we're not getting is a full picture of who 600 people in this place or 600 people in that place. We're talking tens of thousands, 400,000 in the last few years. Don't take my word for it. The Labour Home Secretary mentioned that just the other day. You are allowed to say, do you know what, we're absolutely stuffed as a country financially, so we're going to have a moratorium on this. We'll have no immigration at all for the next 2 or 3 years. And we might have to work around, the genuine neurologists and engineers and scientists we need, and I mean the genuine ones. You might have to work around that. But if you say we're not going to have any, and we know that might be desperate for some people, we are not in a position as a country. We have no money to do this. It is not fair on locals. It's not fair on local systems and infrastructure. It's not fair on the NHS. It's not fair on education. So for the next 3-5 years, whatever it is, we'll have no immigration. That doesn't make you a mad racist. That just makes you a bit of a realist. People might disagree with it, but it doesn't make you a Nazi because you happen to believe that might be the most prudent, sensible approach when trying to get your own country in order. And no one should apologise for having that position. Andy is in Hampshire. Andy, what have you got for us? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, therapist. I call talk radio a therapist now because the government don't listen, only talk radio, it seems.
Absolutely right. Spot on.
But I'd like to point out, I've been in the same job for a number of years now. I haven't had a pay rise in 4 years. Me and the wife managed to live on $2,000 a month, which isn't a lot of money nowadays. Mm-hmm. And at the weekend, I heard some benefit claiming that they were getting $3,000 a month on benefit and finding it hard to live. Yeah. I think it's far easier, being nearly 60, just to go, I've got a dodgy knee, Time to go on the dole.
What do you do? Because obviously the short answer is, well, you just say to certain groups of people who are either idle or just not very motivated to get a job, but there's not necessarily something wrong with them. How do you deal if somebody is unemployed? The government position is always that they're in, it's almost like a gun to your head. They have no choice but to give people money, particularly where there's kids involved.
Well, I think that the benefit system should be cracked down straight away, because there's people that are genuinely on benefits for genuine reasons. But then again, I think there's a lot of people on benefits that could genuinely work.
Yeah.
And just play the system. They know how to play the system. It's all online. They can see how to fill out a form correctly, so it appears that they've got the worst back you've ever seen, or the worst mental condition that you've ever seen. I mean, to be honest, I've never seen so many mental cases in my life than this.
Yeah, well, it's one of two things. We've either got a crisis on our hands and people are, finding themselves going over the edge in that respect, or somebody has redefined what a mental health condition is. One of the two you choose. Andy, thank you very much indeed for that. Kevin in Stafford says, wealth tax, no, but a new tax system, yes. All benefits lower than a revised higher tax-free allowance. Multiple tax bans at 10,000k breaks from 20,000 to 250,000. Immediate incentive to get a job, pay a bit of tax and still be better off than swinging the lead. And the only person that's got close to that is Ian Duncan Smith. It's not perfect. Fraser Nelson, the journalist, we had him in the studio a little while back when that Channel 4 documentary came out, which absolutely discombobulated the left, who thought that Channel 4 was somehow the voice of their concerns, that they made this documentary. But Fraser dipped into it and found that there are still people who find it to be more beneficial. Not even people that were kind of taking the pee in any... I mean, they were a bit, by definition, but they weren't going, yeah, I've got no reason to work, mate. It's not at all. 40 Marlborough Lights and jobs are good. And a couple of pints of an evening, hotel booked in Benidorm for the next holiday, 3 of those a year. It's not that. It's just people who go, well, this is ridiculous. I'm in a situation, why would I work when I can't get a job that's going to pay me more than I can get paid by the state? And the job I would get would be paying me less, and it would be, mentally demoralising because it's an awful job. But it's that position. It's that no one's got to grips with that. Ian Duncan Smith did a bit, and he got scuppered all the way along the line as well. But unless a country like ours is going to get really, really strict on a whole range of things and say, right, OK, this group over here, these are the people here, those that have got disabilities, those that have got genuine mental health crisis, you will be looked after. Most taxpayers are more than happy to pay for people in need. In fact, I've never met one that didn't, to be honest. But there's another group out there where we'll have to say, actually, that there is the benefit system. There shouldn't be a benefit system. It should be almost like an emergency cord that you have to pull as a very last measure. It shouldn't be something you can ponder on utilising in that respect. And I sense it's gone from an emergency thing to an expectation thing. And then the worst of all, a dependency culture. And the dependency culture is where the rot really sets in. And that's a problem. 0344 499 1000.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk. What actually happened there was called a Pringle moment, when Finn, our producer, came in with a tube of the worst flavoured Pringles, but they did. Thank you for that. Lots to get through here. 0344 499 1000. We're also talking about prostate cancer as well. Some of it kills 12,000 men a year. And the saddest reality, of course, of prostate cancer is that it is remarkably curable as long as it's caught in its early stages, and getting tested, blood tests and all the other elements you can go through is worth happening. This comes around, of course, because David Cameron, former Prime Minister, revealed today that he'd had prostate cancer, got it treated. He's now cancer-free, but sometimes you do need a bit of a high-profile face just to kind of keep pushing the fact that we don't routinely screen for this, which is kind of bizarre. Apparently it costs about 18 quid to be screened for it. That's what it would cost the NHS. I think many people would pay themselves for 18 quid to have the test if they knew precisely where to go and how that would pan out. Let's talk about this story. As the net zero saga continues throughout Britain, pressure is being put on the heavy industry. Rob Lyons from Spiked stated that while global trading conditions have played their part, the reason that Britain's plants keep closing is really down to one thing: our obsession with reaching net zero. Let's speak to Rob now on this very point. Rob, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
It's amazing, isn't it, really? This is a kind of a sort of industrial suicide going on here.
It really is. I mean, when we're at a point in the sort of the world economy where we've got China producing more and more stuff powered by coal, much more cheaply than we are producing things, and we're trying to defend jobs and economic security by having a manufacturing and heavy industry base of our own, to be making energy more and more expensive. And it's not just energy either, it's just all the stuff around net zero and the environment generally, which makes doing business in Britain really expensive. And so companies, the news of last week about this plant closing in Fife, big companies like ExxonMobil go, well, where should we do this? Should we invest hundreds of millions in bringing this plant up to date? Or should we just move the production somewhere else where the energy is cheap? The answer is they're moving, and we're losing jobs, and we're ending up importing this stuff rather than producing it ourselves.
Yeah, ExxonMobil being a classic case of this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but it's not just the UK either. I mean, so you look what's happening in Germany as well. But at least the Germans know that heavy industry is really important. And so they don't impose the full costs of net zero on their heavy industry. So we have the highest industrial energy prices in the world. So why would anybody do business here? And the only thing it's achieving is not cutting emissions, it's costing British people their jobs.
Yeah, indeed. And is this really as crude and rudimentary as, you know, organisations looking, or various parts of the equation looking at sort of heavy plant and kit and saying, well, this is bad for the planet, so therefore people are discombobulating and howling at the moon and goodness knows what else, and therefore deciding that, you know, this isn't an industry that any longer is viable, or an industry is certainly not viable over here?
And what I mean, so take that Fife plant, for example. It was making a raw material called ethylene, which is then worked up into plastics. Polyethylene is one of the most commonly used plastic in the world. And we're not going to stop using plastic anytime soon. It's incredibly useful. So what's going to happen is this raw material is going to be produced somewhere else. The plastics are still going to be produced, and we're going to be importing things. So this isn't saving carbon emissions if you look at it on a global scale. It's just making it impossible to do business in the UK.
Is anyone listening to this? I mean, I know we have an interesting government at the moment that aren't necessarily that au fait with how our business works, and that's demonstrated by many of the decisions they've been making. But is there an ear out there anywhere in Westminster that understands the perilous nature of what is happening?
Well, the Conservatives, after imposing a lot of this stuff. I mean, it was after all Theresa May's government that introduced net zero as a target back in 2019. They suddenly have kind of woken up and smelt the coffee and realised that we have to do something about this. Although, given that they imposed it in the first place, I'm a little bit sceptical. Reform for quite a while have said that we need to scrap net zero targets. So there are voices in Westminster now that are aware of how big a problem this is. But when you've got a Labour government, where the energy policy is decided by Ed Miliband, who is very, very ideological about this kind of thing, and you've got the blob, the civil service, the Quangos and all that, who are very much on board with this and will do anything to resist it. I think we really need to have a major sea change in this. I don't know how many more jobs have to be lost, how many more budgets are going to be made a mess of because the economy is shrinking.
Indeed, the economy is shrinking, and of course, that flag of being a sort of a global figure on the stage diminishes by the day when we see things like this. We were once a country where people looked to us as being pioneers and world leaders in this area, and now we have all this caper going on, which is clearly, by any measure, you haven't got to be an economist to realise, Rob, that that's not good for any economy.
No, and it's not as if we haven't done anything about carbon emissions in the past. I mean, it's like, so just shifting from coal to produce electricity over to gas cut emissions a lot. And we've in many other ways we've cut emissions as well. Sometimes, admittedly, we've just exported the jobs rather than actually cut the emissions that we're producing. But nonetheless, we have gone a long way, and there is very little global advantage now in doing this. We see with the COP30 talks that ended at the weekend that actually people are losing interest in this stuff. They can't reach an agreement on anything, and there's no merit to this at all until we get better technology that can produce electricity at a much lower price that's green. Then we should stop what we're doing at the moment. And you see this new report today about nuclear power, how to make it cheaper in this country. The amount of money that we're wasting on building these nuclear plants that would produce green energy, like £700 million for the so-called fish disco to stop fish from going into the intake pipes of Hinkley Point power station, which they're building at the moment. It's just mad regulation, and we need to get rid of all of this and put economic growth back at the centre of what these regulations and what the economic policy of this government is about. And if we do that, we can save jobs, we can grow the economy, and solve some of these problems that we've got that Rachel Reeves is facing in the budget on Wednesday.
Yeah, that is fair. Listen, Rob, can't wait for Wednesday. It's going to be enlightening, isn't it? Great to have you on, though. Rob Lyons is Science and Technology Director at the Academy of Ideas, also a spiked columnist too. Thank you to him. More comments coming in from you. This one from Kevin Paul. Afternoon, Ian. Let's make party manifestos legally binding, and a bit of advice for our incompetent, unqualified Chancellor. You won't grow an economy by pinching money out of people's pockets. Yeah, I mean, it's basic stuff, that, isn't it? Phil in Great Yarmouth just got back from the dentist having a tooth pulled. Not too painful, but I'm sure on Wednesday I'll feel much more pain after the budget. Loving this. Yeah, when they say it's like pulling teeth, Phil is a man who knows, because he's literally just had one tugged. Mary says, to put the benefit system into perspective, I had a carer assessment done by the NHS. It said that in order to give my dad the care he needed, I would have to find £1,200 a week. Wow. As he needed 24-hour care, 7 staff members over 8 shifts. They would not pay a penny to this. In return, I'm looking after my dad 24/7 with his Parkinson's for £85 a week carer's allowance. This works out at around about 45p an hour with no breaks or holidays. Mary, you've brilliantly just highlighted and articulated the nonsense of the system. And of course, governments always know that, carers are the dirty secret, if you like, that get them out of a huge muddle. But don't worry, the pottery classes in Crowborough are safe. Sam is in North Wales. Sam, afternoon to you. On the wealth tax, what are you thinking?
Hi, and pleasure to talk to you.
You too.
My point was that I no one's said it, but if the wealthy have legally paid tax and then they create a law to tax that wealth, is that not just extortion?
You mean you're talking about the like assets on over 10 million? So they've changed they've changed the rules then. If the government did that, although they've not said they would, but who knows?
Yeah, but that's just extortion, isn't it? Just,
yeah.
That when they've already legally paid tax, no matter how they go through their accountants and things like that. It's the reason I called up was because you had that Martin Abraham on a couple of times, and he's been on the afternoon show, and he's just infuriated me about the wealth tax this, the wealth tax that, straight from the Corbyn, Denyer, Polanski sort of playbook, and he's talking over you. And
they love it. They love they're wedded. All they really like, if we're perfectly honest, Sam, is the idea of the word wealth and tax put together. It turns them on. I don't know whether it's kind of a sexual thing, whether it's just a political... But I think it does, you know. It really does animate them. Wow, what could go wrong? Just tax some people who've got loads of money.
Yeah. And then they'll leave the country. It makes everybody poorer by spreading out the wealth because nobody's creating wealth and things like that. And I'm not economically literate at all, but for the basics, for me.
Yeah, I'm the same. Well, I'm the same as you. Yeah. But what I do know is that, you know, because they always go, yeah, but they've all got their money in tax havens. No, they haven't. Some might have. We're talking about the kind of squillionaires that's got offshore funds. The average millionaire in this country pays their taxes. Many of them are PAYE as well. They pay their tax. They pay more tax than anyone else. They take less out the system than anyone else, but the Green Party want to kick them in the kahunas even more.
Yeah, I'm a high earner and I get paid, I get taxed 56%.
Yeah, when you add it all up.
Yeah, and I do overtime and things like that just to help out in the hospital and things like I am now. But yeah, add it all up and I'm just thinking, well, when's it going to come to me?
Yes.
Am I going to
you're not on. Nobody's going to shed a tear for a higher rate taxpayer, and that's just the way, sadly, it goes. And when people, in fact, I think you should get a hamper at Christmas if you're a higher taxpayer. To be honest, Sam.
Yes, please.
Yeah, it'd be all right, wouldn't it? Fortnum and Mason's, nice Christmas pudding, and a bottle of Beaujolais.
Oh, please, yes, please. But my end point is, and I always say it online when I'm arguing with these idiots, wealth tax is extortion. And that's my point.
Yeah, I like it. That's a great way to put it, really, because it ultimately is, isn't it? Sam, thank you very much indeed for that. Sam in North Wales. Yeah, they got you by the short and curlies. It's an extortion racket. You've earned the money, you already pay loads of tax, you take very little out, your kids might be in private school, might not be in private school, but they could be. You probably procure private healthcare more than the average person does as well. You spend more because you've got the disposable income, so there's tax going over there as well, and there's VAT-based issues too. I mean, it is extortion. I love that very simple analysis of it. It's flipping extortion. On the issue of wealth tax, let's get a voice note. This comes from Elle.
My virtue signalling ex is going to be incandescent with rage over this mansion tax, because I did warn him. He's got his £2.5 million property with his 6 acres of land, which he's sitting on hoping to build on. He's got a ground source heat pump, but he's also got an Argo that runs off oil. He's got an electric car and solar panels, but he's also got a Mercedes truck that does 18 miles to the gallon that he likes to go on holiday in. So this wealth tax is going to hit him in the pocket, and it's his own fault he voted for Labour.
There you go. Ditch him, El. I think that's the only way forward on that. Or just sit back with some popcorn. Maybe that's the answer. 0344 499 1000. This is Talk.
In terms of your question around taxes, there are no additional tax rises needed beyond the ones that I've set out.
Don't need to increase taxes. I'm not coming back with more borrowing or more taxes.
I will not increase your national insurance. I will not increase your VAT, and I will not increase your income tax.
We don't need to come back for more. We've done that now. We've wiped the slate clean.
The economic circumstances have declined, deteriorated since a year ago. We are having to look at taxes and spending.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Just gone 10 to 3. So we have the Voice of Doom, day 9. Day 9, as Amy busily looks for it. Day 9. So it's the mystery voice. But it's political. Remember, as a politician could be dead or alive, left or right, young, old, you name it. Very simple question. Who is this?
Rightly and properly.
It is a hard one. Here it is again.
Rightly and properly.
87222. Don't phone, just message 87222 if you know who this is.
Rightly and properly.
If we get a correct answer, we'll tell you after 3 o'clock. Can we hear it one more time, Amy?
Rightly and properly.
Let's go to Matthew in Cheshire. Matthew, what have you got for us? Afternoon.
Good afternoon, Ian. So, Rachel from accounts is sat in 11 Downing Street with a little Texas solar-powered calculator to do the budget.
It's quite funny, isn't it? Calculators have been solar-panelled for longer than probably anything else.
The most greenest electrical thing you could ever have.
There you go, you see. We've all been doing our bit for years.
But, Rachel, surely she must realise a mansion tax.
Yep.
She's going to cause the housing market to crash. Surely, you know, the people who've given us all this money are going to look at what she's doing and they're just going to pull the plug on us, and we're just going to nosedive into an oblivion of like a apocalypse now. I do keep an eye on old politics and PMQs and listen to the budget and stuff like that. And honestly, I'm absolutely dreading.
The thing is, what I never understand, Matthew, is that there are, you know, in that Treasury Department, there are advisors that are meant to be top of their game, right? I mean, the best economists, best financial lawyers that money can buy, who work in there kind of almost full time, and then they drag in a few others. Somebody must be telling her this. Somebody must be going, actually, you're going to scupper everything, mate, if you do that.
I don't know what's going to happen. It's because people will want to sell their houses and downgrade because they don't want to pay would you want to pay $4,500 extra just because you've been a bit lucky on the housing market?
Unbelievable, right?
Why is she going for all these capital investors who are buying HMOs and getting 650 quid for 11 people living in a terrace house?
Yep.
Why don't she tax them? They're the ones that are robbing the country, not these hard-working people who might have a nice house in Surrey. It doesn't mean that they're boosted. It's scandalous, and I physically feel sick in my stomach about this budget because it's going to be a little icing cake of, we'll give you a little bit here, a little bit there. Oh, by the way, you're going to pay more fuel tax, you're going to pay more road tax, you're going to pay more for your TV licence. The council tax is going to get the cap lifted. Oh, and if you've got a nice house, you're going to give us $4,500. So everyone's going to be on benefits.
Well, I mean, maybe that is the plan.
Isn't that some form of communism? Isn't that
yes, I know. I was just thinking, you know, this whole business of, you know, artificial intelligence is going to wreck every, you know, 60% of jobs will be gone. So we're going to have this universal basic income idea because they'll have no choice but to pay everyone because there won't be any jobs.
Yeah, but if you've got it's all right if you live in a rented accommodation, you get it paid for. But if you own your own house, you don't get that paid for. You have to give your house up. You know, and then it's like if you've got a pension. I was 55 this year, and I've cashed my pensions in.
Yep.
And I pay. It was about £70,000. I paid £20,000 in tax because I just thought to myself, what's the point in being a pensioner? Because you don't get anything.
Yep.
So I've cashed it in, and I've spent that money on my house. To get my house ready for when I do decide to retire. But you know she's going to go for your pensions. Anything you've got, any little nest egg in your back pocket, she's going to suck the life out of you.
Yeah.
And then what's going to happen to her after? Because obviously she's going to have this time next week. She's going to be crying in the Houses of Parliament. She's going to have
another breakdown.
Another breakdown.
You think she's due one?
Oh, she's got more breakdowns than the AA.
I think.
Let's be honest about it. We're going to go to Christmas, and all we're going to have is the Grinch.
Yeah.
Keir Starmer's green head in our living rooms going,
More than anything, the funny thing about this, and I know perceptions aren't always correct, but it just smacks of... It's not like... If it was Jeremy Corbyn putting all this together, I could understand that he's come about these decisions because of his own political ideology, and that's what he believes is right. This shower, it just feels of breathtaking incompetence, Matthew. It's like they genuinely do not know what they're doing.
It's all stealth, though, isn't it? Everything's been done stealthily. If they had said this 14 months ago that we were going to do, there was no way they were going to get in. The Green Party would be running the country because they just lied and lied. That BS he said yesterday. I'm doing it for the working people, and what is it? And what was the word? He's so incompetent. Yeah. We're going to help solve the war. We're back in Trump. Trump doesn't want to know him. He's washed his hands of him. Yeah. He's a laughing stock of the world, and our country's being dragged down by this terrible, terrible Labour Party. It's horrible at the moment. Yeah. As soon as we have a general election, I hope Reform can get the act together and get good, strong people in place. That's my only fear, that they're not ready. But this, you know, the Greens, the Lib Dems, the Labour Party, you know, the Tories have got a little bit about them, but not much, have they? Let's be honest.
No, they haven't, and Reform are sort of a bit untested, even though there's an urge for people to naturally gravitate to the party that is certainly talking a good game, but there is some hesitancy. It doesn't show in the polls, as you know, some hesitancy from some that the experience needed just by dint of them being new might not be there in large enough numbers, although I think they can pull that off. Matthew, thank you for that, mate. Really appreciate that. Kelvin in Macclesfield, talking about wealth taxes, says it's not extortion, it's beyond that. It's legalised theft, mate. We are being robbed legally. Good point. Claude makes this point. Rachel Reeves holds a degree in philosophy, politics and economics and a master's from LSE in economics, but she's stuck between a rock and a hard place in the Labour Party. But to be critical, just because you might have a pilot's licence doesn't actually qualify you to fly an F-35 Raptor. I rest my case, and there is the problem. And one from June, I have 3 hotels in walking distance of my house with over 800 migrants. One of the hotels was due to be demolished, but cancelled when they lost planning permission for a supermarket. The owners are now raking it in. What annoys me now is the migrants have heating when I can't afford it. News is next.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon. Yeah, welcome back. It is the home of common sense. Revving up into the last hour of the programme, but we do not take our foot off the gas, kids. We are talking Rachel Reeves. She's eyeing up all sorts of things to do in her budget on Wednesday. We know she's going to add, not slash, but add to the welfare bill. I mean, this is the bill that's out of control. Globally, it's a laughing stock as to what is happening in terms of the amount of money we are spending in this area. She thought less than a year ago she'd try and cut it a bit. Her backbenchers hit the flipping roof. Now she's adding to it. Another 15 billion quid. Where's that money going to come from? Well, maybe it'll come from some form of wealth tax. We know that that's also on the agenda too. We'll continue to take your calls. Would a wealth tax save the economy? Also, migrants housed in that army camp in East Sussex, this is in Crowborough, are also being not only, food, accommodation and heating and all the rest of it, also being offered arts and craft classes, sports events and well-being sessions as thousands of people are protesting. And they've been protesting, of course, for goodness knows how long on this one. This is, I think, the third week now. Nobody's listening to local people. And also this, drivers tempted by luxury badges like Lamborghini, Ferrari and Rolls-Royce might soon look to China instead. Affordable, appealing Chinese models are surging, with 1 in 10 UK passenger car sales in the last 3 months to September coming from Chinese brands. I think I went past one of those sort of moody Range Rovers. Well, they're not moody Range Rovers, they're the Chinese version of a Range Rover. Only yesterday. Is there anything wrong with it? I think somebody said it's 30,000 quid for a good model compared to double that if you bought a Range Rover. Thoughts on that as well? Do you drive a Chinese car? And if so, how's it going? What is it like? Do you sense you're being bugged by anyone? And are there downsides, upsides? What's the deal with these things? I mean, they're made to look pretty tasty, or ish. 0344 499 1000 is where you will find us. Dan in Tunbridge says the Crowborough migrant camp will not just affect Crowborough. There is a bus stop just opposite, so people can get to places like Uckfield, Lewes, Brighton, Tunbridge Wells and Groombridge. The migrants will be allowed every day. How thoroughly will they be kept tabs on? The dissemination of the South East looks inevitable. It's not an unreasonable question to want to know a little bit more about 600 undocumented men arriving in your town. To ask that question is not unreasonable. What do we know? What's the deal here? No one's saying all these people are criminals or anything like that. Statistics will tell you what a percentage will be. So it's a bit of a game of roulette then, okay? Because we've actually allowed this. It's not just once in a while a random criminal pops up from the gene pool. We've actually invited in that kind of whack-a-mole scenario with thousands and thousands of average-age 23-year-old young men. I think residents are allowed to at least ask that question, are they not? We'll continue to take your thoughts on that. So let's move then to this story. Vladimir Putin could return to the world stage under a proposed European peace plan that would allow Russia back into the G8. The offer, made as a counter-proposal to Donald Trump's 28-point plan, contains several concessions, including a cap on the size of Ukraine's army and a commitment to elections that could see Zelensky removed from power. How is this all going to pan out? Let's speak with Elliot Wilson, writer and former clerk at the House of Commons. Elliot, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
It's interesting, you kind of forget about Putin being on the world stage. I was watching a documentary on 7/7 the other day, and I think there was a summit that day that was happening, and the Prime Minister was obviously called away, and when they showed an image of the summit, there was Putin standing there. It looks so odd to remember this man with the good and the great and the presidents and the leaders of European countries and elsewhere. So he was very much a part of it. Then he became person non grata. Now could be making, what, a welcome return, Elliot?
Well, I think it's important, as you say, to remember that Vladimir Putin has been around a long time. He's been in charge of Russia since 1999, and therefore he does feature in our kind of folk memory. But this does seem to be essentially a sort of capitulation by the US, who are clearly tired of backing Ukraine in the conflict, and the Europeans are now trying to salvage something which is not quite as oppressively unfair to Ukraine as the American proposal was, but is still pretty blatantly a win for Russia. It's extraordinary to see some of the terms that we appear to be offering Vladimir Putin, who, let's not forget, invaded his neighboring sovereign country in order to try to conquer it. And saying that, that country should give up some of its land and also accept restrictions on the size of its armed forces, on its international relations. And Vladimir Putin should be welcomed back into the international community because, we're all friends now. And it's absolutely extraordinary.
I mean, it is extraordinary. That is literally the word, isn't it? It's just extraordinary that this is, this will be seen as, subjugation, and even subjugation is a polite way to put it, invasion, pays off, essentially.
Well, I mean, Keir Starmer was saying earlier today that any peace deal has to be just and lasting. Now, whether this lasts or not is, of course, a matter for the future, but it's impossible, I think, for anybody to portray what's being suggested by either the United States or the Europeans as just.
Yes.
The kind of limitations on the armed forces, for example, are the sort of things that the Treaty of Versailles imposed on Germany after the First World War, and Germany had started the First World War in the West. Russia started this war against Ukraine. Ukraine is clearly the injured party, and it's the Ukrainians who are going to have to accept these kind of limitations. I mean, it's almost sort of topsy-turvy. It's very, very strange that anyone is seriously contemplating this, except as a way just to make the whole thing go away.
Well, I mean, I think that's rather the point, isn't it? It's the only kind of thinking I can possibly conjure up, that it just makes it go away. And if that means that President Zelensky has to walk the plank, then so be it, seems to be the thinking on this.
I think there were a lot of leaders, particularly in Europe, who were saying very grand things like, we're with Ukraine for as long as it takes. And I don't think they really thought about what that potentially could mean, because there's no incentive for Vladimir Putin to end this war. I mean, yes, Russia has suffered appalling losses, more than 1 million men killed and injured. But that's not Vladimir Putin's problem. That, as long as there are Russians to feed into the meat grinder, he will do that. This is existential for Putin. It's about his concept of Russia on the world stage, and it's about his survival as effective dictator in the Kremlin, because he knows that if he flinches, then there is a possibility that others might seek to replace him. So Putin has no incentive to end the war, and the Europeans are starting to realize that he has the willpower to outlast them when we're scrabbling around to increase defense budgets just enough to make Europe safe from further hostility by Russia.
What did you make of the story at the weekend that suggested that the words that were written, that came out essentially out of the White House, were actually, when translated and analysed, appeared to be actually probably something that came from the Kremlin and not the Oval Office?
It wouldn't surprise me at all. I mean, this was supposedly the sort of the brainchild, if one can use the word brain, of Steve Witkoff, who is Donald Trump's special envoy for a number of things, but essentially his old golf buddy from New York. And Witkoff has no experience in diplomacy, has demonstrated no ability in diplomacy, and has demonstrated an incredible gullibility when it comes towards dealing with Putin, who he thinks, by the way, is a good guy. I gather in Washington he's being known as Dim Philby, which seems about right. But, Witkoff has clearly imbibed the brief from Trump that this just needs to end. We just need to end the war, and then we can all walk away happy. And Trump will portray it as having made a deal, which is his great problem. The problem is that the deal is being done over the head of the Ukrainians and very much against their national interests. And it has implications. I mean, what does the rest of the world think when it looks at Russia's conduct since at least 2022, if not 2014, 2015? The implication is that if you invade a weaker nation, you will probably get to keep most of what you want if you're serious enough and determined enough. And that's not a good message to send out, I wouldn't have thought.
No, I wouldn't have thought so. And as you rightly said at the beginning, Elliot, it does seem that this is more about just making a problem go away, and the details might get sort of lost in translation, but Mr. Trump will be able to stand up and say, it's another war that I've solved.
Yeah, absolutely. And, he's already said consistently that this war would never have happened if he'd been president instead of Joe Biden. And, of course, in Donald Trump's head, he should have been because he supposedly won the 2020 election. So, yes, I mean, Trump will make a very clear narrative that this is a war that shouldn't have happened, that Biden couldn't solve, and that he has come in and ended. And I suspect there is a substantial constituency of American public opinion anyway, which will easily forget what's happened to Ukraine and what will continue to happen to Ukraine, and just celebrate that the great leader has brought peace.
Indeed. Elliot, thank you for your time, sir. Appreciate that. Elliot Wilson, writer, former House of Commons clerk, knows his territory. Your thoughts on that? I mean, I do think whatever, I don't want to say what side you're on. I mean, this was an invasion, and we can talk forever about the precarious and sometimes questionable nature of Ukraine, which has not always been, a clean sheet. And Zelensky, I'm sure, has the odd skeleton. I appreciate social media, again, does its stuff by, making up all manner of allegations. There is a kind of curious, I've never quite got my head around it, a curious kind of love-in fanboy base of Vladimir Putin, which I find, troubling and disturbing. It would just be hilarious if it wasn't real, but there is that, he's a tough guy. He's tough. He does what he said, looks after his people. Well, I think there's a lot of Russians that might disagree on that. I've always thought that was odd, but I'm pretty sure that Trump knows this is the immovable object, this one. Putin is not going to just walk away from Ukraine and leave it as it is. He wants some of it. And that, according to this, is likely to be the thing that gives the green light. And then Zelensky, we can deal, we'll just get rid of him, just offer him a few bill. He can go and live in luxury in Saint-Tropez or Dubai or something. He'll be fine with that. And then, of course, they can say, well, we solved the problem. Well, not really. I mean, what message does that give out to the rest of the world? That's huge. Think about it. An invasion on European soil, our continent, an invasion took place. God knows how many people have died in that time and displaced and all that goes with it. And the person that carried out the invasion ended up getting, well, pretty much what they wanted in the first place. 0344 499 1000. This comes from Penny, who says, people are required to pay the wealth tax, property theft. In fact, all tax should have the legal right to demand and see cuts in wasteful spending by the state before handing over a penny. Well, I suppose the only way you do that is by voting for another party. Because you're right, in theory, there's nowhere else in life somebody would say, yeah, give us all this money and we'll do this. And then they don't do it. And then they ask for some more money and still don't do what is needed. So you don't get the contract. I know you couldn't do it for every individual, but you take the point. Well made, Penny, thank you. This from Alan, who says, afternoon, Ian, as someone who has paid unbegrudgingly tax at 40% for most of my working career, I now seriously begrudge paying any level. The emphasis should be about spending cuts and wastage, not about ideas of paying more tax so they can throw more good money after bad. Absolutely bang on. Ian is in Bridgend. Ian, what have you got for us on that issue we were just discussing of Ukraine and Russia? Afternoon to you.
Oh, hello, Ian.
Hi.
Yeah, I was just ringing in just to say that virtually all the pundits we hear these days on talk are all very anti-Putin. You know, there never seems to be any balance like in the days.
Do you think that's because he is unequivocally a murderous dictator? Do you think maybe that's the reason?
To be honest, Ian, I've never met the bloke, but
well, no, neither have I. You know, I didn't meet Genghis Khan, but I was aware of the fall.
I know, yeah, you know, history's written by the victors and all the rest of it. But no, it's just you know, to get a more balanced, more nuanced view. Fair play to Trump. You know, he's doing his bit. They put these proposals forward. Now, as I understand it, part of it is an amnesty for Zelensky and the rest of the boys who made a packet out of this to escape with their ill-gotten gains. So I think we're getting somewhere now at the moment, but it's just every pundit we get on all the time. It's we've got to keep the war going. You know, we've got to keep the killing going. At least, you know, give us.
I mean, they're not advocating for killing, are they? But they are advocating that you can't give an invader what they want.
I know, but unless we get, you know, all wars end in a compromise. Nobody gets everything they want. So it's just a case, you know, if we could get a a more nuanced, more balanced view on it then.
Yeah, but I suppose that, the argument, rightly or wrongly, Ian, that comes back is that, there's only one view on this, and that's that a sovereign country was invaded, and what you don't do is then give the invader some of the country.
No, but what I'm saying is it's not as clear cut as we are told in the West. Then you've got to look at the other point that since was it 2014, the Maidan Revolution and all the rest of it, where NATO's extended its influence in Ukraine right up the Russian border. There is an argument, as Peter Hitchens and others have put, that NATO has been a big instigator in stirring the pot in this. It's just, if we got that view occasionally, it would help people to...
listen, that's what it's all about. It's the home of common sense. Happy to take your call, Ian. Thank you very much indeed. I did, before speaking to Ian, just reference there is a view out there that Putin is... there's a view of Putin... There's two views. There's one, I think, which is slightly more measured, that Ian just gave, is that it's more nuanced than just right and wrong. And I defer to someone's greater opinion on international affairs, particularly of this nature. But then there is the other view. There is the kind of the fanboy thing of Putin. That does exist. You've only got to look around your social media pages, kids, and you will see, a lot of it out there. He's a strong leader, he's tough, he's alpha male. It's a bit of that, there's a bit of that going on. That bit I don't quite understand. I'm pretty sure if you pressed many of those people to expand on their knowledge of complex internal Russian affairs and foreign policy from Red Square, I think they'd be a bit tongue-tied, if I'm perfectly honest. They like his biceps. That's more or less what it is. Voice of Doom. Right, before the news, the mystery voice. We played you this voice.
Rightly and properly.
It's day 9. Day 9. So far, nobody's got it correct. What happened today, though? These are some of the guesses. Keith Joseph, no. John Profumo, no. Peter Cargwell, I'll come back to that. Norman Tebbit, no. Peter Cargwell, no. Alan Clark, it is not. Jerry Adams, no. Bernard Floud. Who's Bernard Floud? Somebody just made that name up. Apparently former MP for Acton. There you go, who knew? Rory Stewart. No, can we hear it again, Amy?
Rightly and properly.
That Rory Stewart's about 11 years old. That's an old one. That's the only clue. No one got it correct. It rolls over to tomorrow when it's back. Stand by for that. More of your calls, comments on the way in a couple of moments. Will a wealth tax save the economy? And various other bits and pieces thrown in as well. Lines are open. This is Talk.
some breaking news for you coming out of Liverpool Crown Court.
Loads to talk about, I promise you that. Loads and loads and loads.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the programme. Welcome to the home of common sense.
Yes, it's me again, your genial host, Kevin O'Sullivan. Top of the morning to you. This is Talk Breakfast. I'm Mark Dolan.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
3:25. One here doesn't say who it's from, says, would love to give a message of support to the farmers on every bridge going down the M5 with the tractors lining up, raising the Union Jack. Beautiful sight. I didn't know about that. Thank you, whoever sent that. Anthony, somewhere in the northeast, says, taxing the rich. This is a great point. The government already receive revenue from interest earned on savings, stroke wealth, that the person has. So why would we allow a society to tax you again? Where will this end? That's right. I mean, if you've got... I appreciate that some of these, very rich people don't put their savings in a high street. They probably haven't got a Monzo account. But if you did, and some of them will, then the interest that you earn on that is taxable. So, yeah. I mean, the taxes, the angle of taxes in this country is horrendous. It's criminal. They're everywhere. They're always looking for ways to tax rather than looking for ways that in a progressive country, 21st century, should be going, yeah, we're looking for ways not to have to tax. And one of the ways you can do that is based on personal responsibility and slashing spending. Now, you've got to be careful where you do it. You don't want to close down schools, obviously. But really, we can't do better than the current crop we've got over there in Westminster? Outrageous. Ashley is down in London on wealth tax. Ashley, what have you got for us? Hello.
Afternoon. I was just going to say a couple of things. I mean, I'm a project manager. I've got a, I do okay, and I get by. But I was born and bred in the London area or the suburbs, and my parents, I was brought up in a council flat, and I managed to buy my own place, and I'm 53 now, so I've been an owner for quite some time. But obviously, I didn't pay that much for my house, but the reality is that whether I lived in Manchester and did the job that I do, I'd probably earn similar money. Yeah. With the proposals that are in, which we appear to be having, is that because my house that I bought will fall into a specific category, I'm going to get taxed heavily even more on my house. Whereas if I was in Manchester or Liverpool or Newcastle, or the same job that I have now, I wouldn't be. It's just the thought process in Westminster that they can't understand that regionally there are differences, and that needs to be considered because people's pockets are exactly the same, whether they're up north or down south. If you're a nurse, I'm actually doing a job for someone who is actually a nurse, and they're worried because their house is within a band F, I think, which would fall into this new taxation. But from their scale of pay is no different anywhere in the country. So what's going to happen is that they're going to struggle to get into work, and they're going to struggle to feed their kids, and they're going to struggle. But it's a blanket ban on everyone. Yeah.
But there is no consideration of those geographical differences, which is why it makes it intrinsically unfair, right?
Well, it's completely unfair, and also how do you value it? I mean, I've got houses in my road as an example. I've extended my house. I am band F, but there's other people in there that are band G that actually seem to have not done so, and so the bandings don't work, and there's going to be so many legal challenges over this, I would think, because people are going to say that what basis are you valuing this on, and I'm sure there's going to be some wonderful lawyers out there ambulance chasers, so to speak, that are going to be out there trying to, like no win, no fee, and we're going to go after the government for money because they valued it wrong. So it just falls down completely on the basis. I mean, I hate to say this word because everyone hated it when I was growing up, and that's the poll tax. But it's when you grow older and you look at it and you actually start thinking to yourself, well, actually, do you know what? If you've got 5 people in your house and you use 5 times the amount of service, then you probably need to be paying for that. Whereas if there's only 2 people in a house, then they're only using a much lesser resource for the area. So the idea, maybe the implementation at the time wasn't right, but the actual idea of it, actually, you think about it, to raise money, would, if you've got 5 people in your family and 5 lots of food and 5 lots of rubbish waste and 5 lots of services with the doctors and so on and so forth, then it would seem to be a bit more appropriate. But valuing on a house, I think, is beyond punitive because it's going to affect people so much different area to area, but in the same situation as each other.
Yeah.
That was it, really.
It's spot on. No, I think you're absolutely bang on, Ashley. Thank you very much indeed for that. And I know that, there's always the argument whatever tax you put in place is going to be unfair to some people. They kind of seem to work on the basis that if you broadly get it correct, then yes, some people will be squealing and saying, well, why is, the fella at number 68 paying a whole different rate? And I think they just run with that. That's all I can really think. I can't think of any other logical reason because it's an illogical position. Charles in Melksham says, can we start to name and shame the individuals who are signing off these ludicrous freebie courses like art courses for illegal immigrants? Do you know, that's a missing part of the puzzle, isn't it? The naming and shaming of people. Because there will be, I always seem to say this, there's somebody somewhere, there's one person somewhere, one person who would have had to have signed it off. There'll be a group of people that were instrumental in kind of putting the policy together. But you never hear about it. I still want to know who's responsible for the panorama edit. That's a person. There's a person that sat at a laptop or in an edit suite in front of a screen and edited the Trump speech. I'd like to know, I don't want anybody to be, if it's dangerous to name someone and you're going to get such a pile-on that your kids can't walk to street without somebody throwing a banana at them or something, then I kind of get it, and that's arguably the reasons. I mean, you could find out, the trouble is you could look on the credits, it could have the word editor. That doesn't mean physical editor. The editor of the news doesn't physically edit film or any other kind of digital project. They are the editor of how the programme is. They edit what goes in the programme, not physically editing. So you've got to be careful with that. So it's tricky. I don't know. We never found out any more detail. I mean, it would be interesting to know, at least, even if we didn't have the names, that certainly the roles and how many people were involved and who signed it off. That would be the thing. Who signed off a panorama documentary? I've spoken to a few people who've seen it, and they said that when you watch the whole documentary, it doesn't look as outrageous as it does when you see it in isolation. Right, I'm not buying that because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I'm sure that's true. If you watch it all, it's a programme about what happened that day. I'm sure there's other things going on. But it's still no excuse because that is a clip from the programme that made President Trump look as if he was saying a completely different sentence. I mean, you can't do that. By the way, talking of editing things, we're editing out the talkTV app. It's disappearing. It will be no more. If you listen and watch on the talkTV app, ditch it, get rid of it, because all your favourite shows and podcasts will continue on the Talk app. It's just solo Talk app. Look it up. It's in your App Store or Google Play. It'll be there, the Talk app. So if you want to still watch, then download that and you can do so, because December the 1st, which, by the way, is a week today, the talkTV app no longer exists. It's just the Talk app you need. Just gone 3:30. This is Talk.
Across the UK. On DAB+. On YouTube. On your mobile. And on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk. Let's go back to your calls. Jack is in Kent. What have you got for us, Jack? Good afternoon.
Oh, hello there, Ian.
Hi.
I've got a confession to make before. I'm a bit voiceless. There are some voices that I just can't stand, including my own, by the way. But I hope you get rid of that voice of doom before long. I can't stand the way he says properly.
Yes.
It just really grinds.
You mean this voice?
Rightly and properly.
Yeah,
Properly.
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 I know.
I love those random acts of irrational annoyance. We used to do that as a feature, oddly, on late night radio, where things that no one else finds annoying, I find annoying, or they find annoying. Do you know what I mean? There's a big old list of them out there. I had one that I came up with one at the weekend. It's gone now, but anyway, do continue, Jack.
My favourite hater is Neil Nunes. Anyway. Yeah, I think I rang up to echo what I've heard you say, I think, several times, and that is that most people in their private lives are conservative or capitalist.
Yeah.
I mean, people like Polly Toynbee, Karen Lineker, they preach about the value of the redistribution of wealth, but they don't do that with their own funds, which they perfectly could do. I mean, if they come across somebody who's homeless and in financial dire straits, they don't say, look, I've got all this money, much more than I need. Why don't you have some of this? Why don't I help you out?
Yeah.
Or why don't I've got a cottage in the country that I only use now and again? Why don't you go and stay there just for the winter? You know, they don't do that. They cling on to their own piles and keep it within the family.
Absolutely.
You know, while at the same time campaigning against the very system that allows them
to do it,
to be richer than everybody else. You know, and they're assuaging their own conscience, you know. They think to themselves, well, we're doing our bit, we're campaigning against it, even while we benefit from it.
How much would you give away, Jack, if you had £100 million? Ballpark figure.
Well, you think to yourself, if I won the lottery, if it's 100 million, you think, well, you know, you'd give 80 million at least.
Yeah.
You think that, but then I think that some people think that when they actually and they think, well, you know, I don't know.
Jack, your phone line has gone AWOL on us. It's gone all wonky. But I hear Jack, thank you very much indeed for that. Yeah, if I won 100 million on the lottery, I reckon at least 80, possibly 90 you'd give away. I put this to Finn, our producer, once, because he's always going to win the Euro Millions. And it was about, what was that massive jackpot they had? 220, which I think is as high as it can go, isn't it? 220 or something like that. 220 million. And I said I'd give away, you know, I'd have to give away 200 million of that. You'd have to give it away. I'd find all that. And Finn's answer was, I wouldn't give any of it away. Just keep it all. And that's a lot of nights out. And he has a lot of nights out already. Oh, that was the random act of irrational. Is this irrational? OK, and I have banged on about this before. We went out on Friday night to a nice restaurant. There were 6 of us, 3 couples, all tickety-boo. And then somebody at the table said, let's go for a drink afterwards, because we met quite early. Let's go for a drink in the pub afterwards. I know, we'll go to that one next door because it has a band on. Right. Because it has a band on. Sorry, you mean... No, let's go to that one because it doesn't have a band. That's the one to go to, right? That's the one to go. Because it has a band. Let's go to that pub because it will mean that for the remainder of the night, you won't be able to talk to each other. What a great night out. So off we trot round the corner and I'm moaning. My other half's going, oh, stop moaning, it's an enjoyable time. And in we go, order a drink and we sit there shouting at each other. I'm saying to my mate John, I'm going, yeah, I hate pubs with bands on. He's going, what? I'm saying, I hate there's a fella playing a guitar, doing some old, you know, bit of Oasis, bit of everything. Very talented fella. Can't hear anything. Is that irrational? Is that an irrational position to have? Finn, is that irrational? Finn thinks it is. Oh, he's all right. He's with me on that. Although he does spend most of his weekends in a club where he can't hear any of his mates. They speak in sign language like apes. 2 a.m. Amy, is that irrational? No. Yeah. You really can't hear each other. I mean, you genuinely can't. So you're shouting at each other. Mates go, how you doing? How's work? All right? Yeah, it's all right, Rich. Thank you, mate. Speak to you soon. I was about to send him a text to respond. It's madness. Peter is in Portsmouth. Peter, what have you got for us?
You're on about these unemployed people and sort of sitting around all day. Well, I reckon what they should do, they should make them get up in the mornings and go and work for the community to get their dole money. That'd make them think twice, wouldn't it?
It's interesting, isn't it, that for years people have suggested that there should be some people on benefits that have to kind of contribute community-wise. But it never goes anywhere, that suggestion.
No, well, it's just too... I mean, you're on about the child benefit thing, right? I'm not going to name names, but I know a girl who's now had a third baby by a different father, 3 different fathers, just so she can get more money.
Wow.
How is that right? How is that right?
Well, there's nothing right about that, but it's not entirely unusual. I don't say it's commonplace, but it's not that particular scenario. But it's not. She's not alone, I'm sure.
And can I say one thing, Ian? I listen to your show every day when I'm driving about.
Yeah.
Regarding about immigration.
Yes.
I've had lots of dealings with immigration. I've got a Thai wife who I've been with now for over 20 years. And why do I have to pay for all these other buggers that are coming here, right? When I can't even bring my own wife here, and if I want to bring her here, and I've already paid up to £9,000, right? And basically, I'd have to pay another £3,000. She'd have to do the living in the UK test, right? A 52-year-old Thai lady, she doesn't know how many MPs there are in Parliament. I used to have a pub, and we did living in the UK test as a quiz one night. Nobody passed it, and they're all English.
And one of the questions was, how many MPs are there in Parliament?
Yeah. And the other thing is...
Most people would never know that. It's by the way, Anorak alert, I think it's about 650, but no one would really know that. Yeah.
No, but there's lots of questions like that that have got absolutely nothing to do with living in the UK.
No.
But why should I have to pay...
I have never understood this. We hear this story all too regular, Peter, you know, from something like yourself, your wife's in Thailand, people coming over from Australia, South Africa is another one, America. You're jumping through hoops and over hurdles and an extraordinary amount of money thrown in as well. Or she could go to Calais, of course, Peter, and just row over on a boat.
I did suggest that. I mean, she has been here, but when they refused her visa, she's now got what they call a 10-year holiday visa where she can come here for 6 months, right?
Right.
But to get her here on a permanent basis, if you don't pass the visa regulation or they turn it down, right, you lose all the money. You don't get the money back.
You see, that's the... how is that even a thing? You don't get your money... Sorry, you fell. Can I have my £9,000 back? No, sorry, mate, it doesn't work like that. I mean, Tony Soprano couldn't make that one up.
I know. I'm a British citizen, and I can't bring my own wife here. And I'm paying all this tax for all these other buggers.
Love it. I know there's a very serious point under the humorous way you impart it, Peter, but you're absolutely spot on, and it's sadly not uncommon. Peter, thank you for your comments and your call as well. This one comes in from, well, no name given. Can we ask Ian if it would be possible to introduce a new term for someone if their phone line has gone wonky? Because he has some fantastic sayings. How about binky bonky? I do apologise, Leonard, your phone line's gone binky bonky on us. Anyone listening to that go, what did he say, that bloke? Do you know what he just said? Here, Alf, do you know what he said? What's binky bonky mean? I never heard the like. Give it a go. I feel I've gone a bit binky bonky. We are going to talk Chinese cars as well in a moment as well. There's more and more. Are you the owner, the driver of a Chinese car? You know, they're doing those kind of look-alikes. So you get like looks a bit like a Range Rover, but it's not. It's the Chinese kind of equivalent of probably about half the price. We'll talk to Steve Berry on this point in just a second. Our lines are open. This is Talk. Big news coming this December. Our talkTV app is moving to the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. From Monday, 1st of December, the talkTV app will no longer exist, so don't miss out. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is indeed Talk. Kaz says, do we know if Starmer is going to be in Parliament when the budget drops, or is he going to be busy tripping over the hearth rug in the White House? The hearth rug. Hearth rug. Of course it is. That's a good point, actually. Did you see the trip? It was a beauty. And Gary says, definitely not irrational. This is about music too loud in a pub or even being there at all. I've just been to Nashville with music in every bar and I decided to drink in a bar which was quiet. It might be an age thing. It could be an age thing, but yeah, the chicken, I tell you what, the Nashville fried chicken. Mate, I hope you had some of that, Gary. That's like the best ever. It might be an age thing, but actually I've had that feeling about pubs. If you go into a club, you're going to hear music, right? I get that. That's kind of meant to be there. And I know why the pubs need the music, because it gets more people in for some reason, even if they can't talk to each other. Let's go to this story then that we've been talking about a little bit over the last couple of hours. That of China continue to expand on their entry into the motor industry. Luxury lookalikes are popping up for 10% of the price of the top names like even Rolls-Royce or Lamborghini. Let's get a word from our friend Steve Berry, the motoring journalist, former Top Gear presenter. Steve, good afternoon to you. And they are real. I mean, the Chinese, you know, whatever people think about the way they might do business and the regime, they certainly know how to do it, right?
Absolutely. About 18 months ago, Ian, I went to a dinner at a very exclusive hotel in leafy Cheshire.
Nice.
There are some nice parts of the Northwest, you know.
There's loads.
It was lovely. There were various people from the automotive world. Buyers, sellers, people with fabulous collections of cars, all kinds of people. I ended up sat next to a bloke whose family have run a very profitable dealership dealing in German cars, Volkswagen, BMW, Porsche, in the Northwest for the last 40 years. And he told me a story about two men who came to see him and basically said, listen, mate, why don't you give up selling all these things and sell our Chinese cars instead? And he said, I just couldn't stop laughing until they told me how much they were willing to supply the cars to me for, Steve. That's what he said to me.
Wow.
He said, and then guess what? I stopped laughing and I started listening. And I said to them when they finished, but you can't possibly be making a profit at those prices. And they said, we're not bothered about making a profit for at least 10 years.
Of course.
We're coming for the market, the car market in Europe, and we're going to have it.
This is the disruptor. This is the disruptor model, right, Steve?
Yeah, they're going to have it. And I mean, if you're Volkswagen or you're Nissan, every day, obviously, because it's my game, I subscribe to all sorts of news sources in the automotive world. And every day I'm getting notice. Oh, Nissan are in terrible trouble. Oh, Renault are in trouble. Stellantis are on the brink of bankruptcy. But then, weirdly, Porsche don't make any money. Aston Martin are in financial difficulty.
Yeah.
And you just think, yeah, they're coming for the market. Now, I was going to say in the same way that the Japanese came for the European volume car market in the 1970s, But what the Chinese are doing is making the Japanese look like amateurs.
Yep.
They are willing to sell cars to the people that sell them to us and not make a profit for 10 years. That's what they're telling people. And what I'm seeing on the street, I don't think you're seeing it where you are, Ian, but what I'm seeing is people driving around in these Chinese cars, because guess what?
Yeah.
They don't really care. They look at the spec and they look at the price and they think, I don't care if I can't pronounce the name of the car or the place that it was built in. All I get a good car, a good reliable car, cheap.
Yeah.
That's what they're getting. The European car industry are quaking in their boots because they know this could be it for them.
This could be, yeah, this isn't just a blip. This is a very serious, it's not even a dent. It's a seismic onslaught into the market, of course. And it's funny you said about seeing people driving around, Steve. Literally yesterday, I passed one of those kind of Range Rover Sport looky-likey Chinese models, and I, didn't get a full chance to take it in, but I wasn't driving. I thought, well, it kind of does look like one from the outside. It's not a bad looking car if you like that version of a kind of 4x4. Inside, I'm pretty sure it's got a nice kind of big screen, which everybody likes now. I'm sure the seats are comfortable. It's not like some old, Skoda from back in the 70s. This is the proper deal, right? They know what to do to make people want to buy them. And it probably costs half the price of a Range Rover Sport.
And here's the other thing. My hometown, Bury, Lancashire, is known as a market town. Folk come from all over the north and the Midlands to go to Bury Market. Yep. Bury's world famous market, over 150 stalls. Guess what's opened right opposite the market in the shopping centre? A BYD car dealership inside the shopping centre. It makes so much sense, Ian.
Wow.
Don't stick it out on a blinking industrial estate where folk have got to drive out there.
Yeah.
Put it in the shopping centre. Put it TK Maxx or whatever, so folks see it when they're walking by.
Yep.
And they're there. And here's the thing as well. I went in and I went, hey, lads, what a good idea this is. And the guys that were working it are like, yeah, we're bringing the cars to the people. And they said, oh, and by the way, if you want to test drive one or you want to drive in one, we can have one round the back. Where we keep them is just down the road. We can have one here in less time than it takes you to drink a cup of our nice coffee. And I thought, this is... I hate to say it, but it's well, in a way I do, because we as motor manufacturers, Britain, got out of the mass market when did we get out? In the debacle that was British Leyland, who actually built some decent cars, but there were all sorts of things going on. Thatcher didn't want it. The unions were a nightmare. It all came to a horrible end. But we have remained a huge client manufacturer of cars for foreign-owned car companies. But I wonder if even that, so we're not quite in the same situation as the Germans, who rely on their car industry for near on 25% of their annual gross domestic product.
Yeah.
They're the ones, it's the Germans and the Italians and the French, the people that have still got something of a car industry, a homegrown car industry, they're the ones that need to really worry. I mean, and in a way it's all, it's doom and gloom, but folk are getting, Ian, I'll tell you what, I drove a BYD recently. They're getting a really good car at a really good price.
Yeah.
So whilst, yes, it's a problem for the industry, a massive problem, I do feel for the people that are going to lose their jobs. I really do. For the customer, this is great. You're getting a great car,
sure,
high spec, at a great price.
And that's.
But are we just going to hand over everything?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, over here at the moment, we're not great in. We have got a big automotive industry. We often, for others, Nissan being an obvious example. There's not going to be an equivalence of that, though, is there, with the Chinese?
No, but that's why when you had me on here and various other places defending Jaguar with what they've done. The real reason that Jaguar have gone off into the stratosphere with that 00 concept is because the volume market is over in Europe.
Yeah.
China is going to take that market. I don't need to say it again. So manufacturers like Jaguar, Aston Martin, McLaren, we've still got those small volume hypercar, luxury car manufacturers and traditional cars like Morgan, Caterham, Lotus here in the UK.
Sure.
And those cars will be will continue to be in demand, but they are a fraction of 1% of the world car market. And that car market from now on is going to come out of the same place as the cameras in your studio, the phone that I'm talking to you on now was made. They're going to be made in China.
And on that point, Steve, thank you very much. I tell you what, that's profound stuff, and there's no getting away from it. It is Chinese all the way. Steve Berry, motoring journalist. It wasn't that long ago when anyone asked you word association as a kid, you know, think of China. What do you conjure up? You think of a takeaway. I don't mean that to be smart. I mean genuine.
That is a dangerous game to play.
It is, but you would.
It's a dangerous game to play.
A dangerous game.
It's a dangerous game. I think of virology labs.
But, well, now you do.
Now
but,
I do,
back
yeah.
in the day. But now,
Pangolins.
they are, like he was just saying there, Alex Phillips here, by the way, for those listening, thinking, why is there a girl in the studio?
Oh, my goodness, how could
why.
they let that happen on the right-wing channel? No,
What is
we're
going
supposed to be
on?
waving misogynists.
Females, you'll have gay people on the schedule next. Yeah, we've already ticked that box too.
Heaven forfend.
Listen, but it's true, isn't it? With the Chinese, he just said, it's a bulldozer through the car economy. It's that they are selling it for no profit. They're selling it for no profit.
But all economists, and this is the way they work in their sort of predatory mercantilism. I remember when I lived in Ghana back in 2006, and I started writing then a book about the Chinese in Africa, because they were in Ghana largely to get hold of rare earth minerals, gold, copper, so on and so forth. But they were doing things like shipping over their own egg manufacturers, egg farmers. What do you call someone who's like a farmer of eggs, I suppose? Yeah,
like a farmer, maybe.
And sort of setting up these huge indoor farming compounds with sort of lights going on and off to undercut the local Ghanaian egg suppliers. And then all the beautiful fabrics they make in Ghana, all the sort of exquisite patterns. Used to be printed at a place called Akasombo. There used to be 11 mills and then these